4th of December, 4th of December, I'd like to call the Nevada State Board on Indigent Defense Services meeting to order, please. We're going to start with item number 1, which is a roll call. If we can please have Casey, are you going to do that for us?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Kate Thomas,
I'm here.
Joni Eastley, Chris June Kellyani,
Here.
Abigail Frierson, Susan Bush,
Here. I'm here.
Angela Cook, Lorena Dellinger, Joe Krim, but he emailed and said he was going to just be a few minutes late. Allison Jaffe, Dave Mendiola, Jared Hickman,
Here.
Justice William Moppin, David Figler.
Do we want to do another go through, excuse me, and see if anybody was muted and perhaps we couldn't hear them?
I
Okay.
think Joni Eastley might be on. Joni, are you here? No?
Sorry, I was muted.
Oh, there
I'm
she is.
here.
Okay.
Yeah, my apologies.
I thought I saw your number. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Anyone else that missed their name that was perhaps on mute or didn't unmute in time?
Oh, Lorena Dellinger's here.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Lorena. Okay. Great. Well, I believe we have a quorum.
And then Dave Mendiola is doing the team, so I'll message him.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll let him join. In the meantime, we can move on to item number 2, which is public comment. And this is our first public comment period, which is going to be limited to 3 minutes. If anyone is here that would like to offer public comment to the board.
So if anybody's in the chat, they can raise their hand and we can unmute them so that they can be heard. Otherwise, participants can join by phone at area code 253-215-8782. The meeting ID is 850-4558-7167. The passcode is 266220. I don't see anybody in the room here in Carson City at the DID's office.
I do see one hand up, so I'll call on, is it Massey Mayo?
It is. Thank you.
Sure.
And good afternoon to everyone. My name is Massey Mayo, and I am with Mansfield Mayo. We have 2 contracts, one with the Lyon County area, and then one up here with the Nevada State Public Defenders for Humboldt County. I just wanted to jump on early. I have to go to a prelim later, but I really appreciate the reports that are published. They're very helpful, but they cause a lot of discussion internally for our firm, certainly to try to address what appears to be some concerns or open-ended questions that are raised by the reports. And I just wanted to, I guess, stress that, again, anyone is always welcome to call our firm to clarify any questions that they have or discuss processes in terms of how we promote the best and most zealot advocacy on behalf of our clients. I think one of the points that I could just raise easy that seems to be, I guess maybe we might be a little bit sensitive to it, but I just want to make it clear is, for example, it's noted that, we do a hybrid format in the Canal Township Justice Court in Fernley, where some of our attorneys appear via Zoom on occasion for pretrial statuses. And then, of course, we're always in person for prelims. But we have a whole system in place as it relates to even our pretrials, including that we pay and have a high-level paralegal support staff present in court every single day. And then we also set up meetings pre-court from the time court starts at 10. We're there at 8 to 10. We are speaking to every single client that's going to be seen on that docket, in addition to any prior consultations that we've had with our clients. And I just want, that's a good example of something that we've done internally from my perspective to really ensure that, whatever issues might be or barriers might exist from quote unquote a Zoom appearance via the attorney while the client's in person are managed and handled. And I don't think that those sorts of examples don't come across in the reports as effective advocacy and the behind the scenes. It's just noted, for example, that the attorney's on Zoom, there's continuances, and the reasons for those continuances, which oftentimes I think the reporter at least noted that oftentimes they're related to the state's issues and not necessarily our issues. So again, I just bring that up because I feel that it's important that our voices are heard about how we're trying to manage even our own barriers. And it would be great if those open-ended questions or open-ended negative inferences could be wrapped up with a quick phone call to us or a quick note, and so that we could relay the information so that everyone in these meetings fully understands what's transpiring on the ground. That's my first issue. Second, and I know I only have 3 minutes, so I'll try to keep it short, but as regards our data and timekeeping and closing out cases, again, Mr. Mansfield talked last time, we're working on that, but I just want to make clear that I know just on the ground that the expectation of data management from our perspective is difficult. It's difficult and a little bit not realistic about when you're diving in and just looking at our numbers or you're looking at our hours, to really have a clear understanding of that transpiring to performance, right? Or that that's an accurate number for the number of clients that we have. A lot of the data out of Lyon County specifically was inherited by us, and we've done our best to clean that up, but it's still a work in progress. So, and additionally, that's not something that, at least in terms of the contract with the state PD's office, that we can even, that's just an overhead cost for us. And so it's not a realistic idea that I can be in court 3 days a week, come back, work on our data. I'm paying a support staff person to try to help with that. And so at the end of the day, if we could have some support in that regard, as opposed to just sort of, keep highlighting the numbers, we would appreciate that. And then lastly, I just wanted to say that, I do think that it's a great concept to have constant discussions about what's could be improved, but there are a lot of good wins out here in rural Nevada and things that we have been doing well, and I have seen a lot of improvement, specifically. And one of those that I want to highlight is that, obviously we all understand that the 2 attorneys that were working for the Nevada State Public Defender resigned, basically same time, which required a huge transfer of caseload. And our firm, I think, worked very well with the NSPD to absorb what we could realistically, and without losing much continuity for the clients in terms of, sentencing's not getting pushed back, prelims not getting pushed back, those sorts of things. And I think that that's a huge win, and certainly just shows that we really are here trying to collaborate and work hard to provide effective advocacy. And the other thing I just wanted to highlight, and then I'll wrap up, is that, specifically for our firm and the rural areas that we practice, we have 5 attorneys, and we also took advantage of a summer intern from the LASSO program, and who has stayed on to do some additional work throughout her school year. So, that's a big deal for a rural law firm to have 5 full-staffed attorneys, each of which provides some level of services for indigent defense in rural Nevada. And I'm very proud of that. And I think that we all know the struggle of attorney retention and attorney recruitment. And I would just suggest that as part of that recruitment strategy, that you really try to lean in on the local resources that are available, because it's definitely difficult for an outsider to tell another outsider what the pros and the cons are of living in rural Nevada, how to, maybe not live here, but come here, and why it's important and what service they're providing. So I think that our firm continues to try to strive to recruit as well. And that's been a very big success for us throughout the 2025 year. That was a goal for us as well. So those were my comments, and I thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. All right, is there anyone else that would like to speak under item number 2, public comment? Any other hands? All right. I will close public comment and move on to item number 3, which is the introduction of new board members. And I believe Ms. Frierson couldn't make the meeting today, and maybe not the next one, is my understanding. So we may push this item to the March meeting, if that sounds, unless you've got anything there in Carson. Nope. Okay.
Nope.
I'm seeing. Head shakes, great. All right, let's move on. That was just for discussion. So let's move on to item number 4, which is approval of the minutes. This is for discussion and possible action. If everyone's had a chance to look over the October board meeting minutes for that not very short meeting.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I read them thoroughly. I thought they looked good, and I'll make a motion to approve. This is Joni in Tonopah.
Thank you, Ms. Cecily. Any other comments, or do I have a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second. This is Jared Hickman.
Thank you so much. Noted that David is here. I think he put something in the chat. So we'll note that for the record. Thank you. Okay, back to the minutes. I have a motion and a second. All of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any
Aye.
opposition? All right, that motion passes. We'll move on to item number 5, which is the oversight update, which includes reports from our outreach advisors. And I'll turn that over to Homa, David, and/or Derek, whomever wants to take that.
Thank you, Homa Sayar, for the record. In the meeting materials, there hadn't been much time since the last meeting. So what we did was the reporting that's in the meeting material is more summary. One thing I'll highlight, and I believe Mr. Sheik can speak more to this, is his visit with the monitor to Nye County. It's kind of a companion to the monitor's report regarding the 432B cases. He let me know yesterday that in asking the contract attorneys what coverage they were doing of 432B cases, he estimated about 20% of their time was spent. And so he had some suggestions about how to drill down into that and address freeing up that time to handle other cases. So that's in the materials. We also have some reporting from Mr. Lopez regarding some visits to Lyon County. Those are in brief. And then myself and Deputy Director Roberts, we went to Humboldt County for a long day of law in motion. So I can echo what Ms. Mayo was saying about those long days, and then the idea of having to go do paperwork afterwards. And so we actually got a really good cross section of attorneys, because I think the judge had indicated it was the most separate defense attorneys he'd seen in his courtroom since he started. So we got to see a lot of folks, and we have some notes there. I also have some observations from 2 law in motion days in Douglas County. To the point of the question of Zoom, there's some discussion in my memo about different things we've observed. I know it was mentioned in public comment, we see varying use of it, and what situations it comes up in and what situations it doesn't. So it's something that one of our board members had contacted us about. When do attorneys appear? Like, what does that look like? What's that sort of decision tree? And Deputy Director Roberts saw that as a possible training or onboarding discussion to be having with attorneys about best practices, and as the public comment mentioned, when it works, when it might not work, and that sort of thing. We also have, I have email correspondence that's in there where Mr. Sheik flagged that an attorney in court was indicating to a judge, oh, put me at the end of the calendar. I'm on the clock. I'm making so much money. I have 300 cases. So then I responded by running some numbers about caseloads. And so you'll see that in my response to Mr. Sheik, and just continuing to look at the data about what might be going on and what's sustainable. And then we also have the encouraging piece that Nye County has posted for a mid-year letters of interest for public defense services, and that's Exhibit 2. Multiple people had sent that to us, and we're excited about that. And then there's other notes that, if there's any questions about that tie directly to the monitor's observations, we've got our meetings with the NAPD, the National Association for Public Defense, and getting them on board for technical assistance. We've also had a meeting with U.S. Digital Response about examining the user experience for case management and what that looks like in the future. So I will turn it over to Mr. Sheik. I think he said he would be on, and he can speak more directly to the numbers he got and the discussions he's had.
Madam Chair, before he presents his report, may I ask Homa a question?
Yes, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. It's Joni Eastley in Tonopah. I didn't receive this in enough time to read the whole thing. If I have any questions, I'm sure it's okay. Can I call you directly?
This is Palma for the record. Absolutely. My goal was, given how lengthy the meeting was last time, it's more in-depth about certain topics that I touched on. And please do reach out. There's other invitations in there for board members to reach out and keep that dialogue going. Obviously, it was a short time between meetings, and we were adding things as of yesterday afternoon about certain, especially at the end. I guess I should highlight that because that might be something that is pressing or would be considered by the board. There's some ongoing issues about inmate communication contracts on the prison level. We are aware also that there's issues with people trying to call up from the jails. I know in Elko yesterday, an attorney mentioned to the judge that they're having trouble getting their clients to be able to contact them. And so obviously that's not in DID's purview officially, but as a state agency, we can, reach out and have those conversations and hopefully learn what might be the issue and see if we can provide some assistance and support on that front. So, but yeah, happy to talk about any of this. And then also Mr. Lopez's more detailed reports about the other dates will be coming in. And then I believe we have more traditional reports coming in for the dates that are summarized by Mr. Sheik. So it's kind of an interim thing, but absolutely happy to talk about anything. And it's obviously any board member input or support or advice is always welcome.
Thanks,
Thank
Selma.
you.
All right, Mr. Sheik.
Thank you. If I could, with the chair's permission, we have agenda item number 8, which is the Nye County status report. If we can hold off on discussion of Nye County till that agenda item, I can cover the other counties fairly quickly.
Great.
But
We'll
as
combine that with number 8 then as part
thank
of that.
you.
You're welcome. We'll do it.
The other counties that I'm responsible for include Lincoln, White Pine, Eureka, and Esmeralda. I can report that Lincoln County is in full compliance on caseloads. The two attorneys there are doing a fine job. There are no problems in Lincoln County. Lincoln County actually has a jail so they can house their own inmates, which is a big convenience for them. And so I have nothing to report negative from Lincoln County. Eureka County, we've had a change. Kelly Brown is retiring at the end of this month from his position. He still may be doing other things in indigent defense, but not having the Eureka contract. That is a .3 full-time contract because of the limited number of cases they currently have in Eureka. We have appeared before the Eureka board last month, and they've approved Jane Eberhardy to pick up that contract. She's already on board, doing a transition with Kelly now on the existing cases, and we'll be taking all the new cases after the first of the year. She currently also has a contract in White Pine County to cover overflow and conflict cases from the State Public Defender's Office. We are going to be monitoring her caseload in White Pine County to assure that she's not taking on too much by assuming the Eureka contract. Eureka still has unique issues as they do not have a jail. They're housing their inmates currently in White Pine County, which has created some problems. It actually, Jane Eberhardy has an office. Her office is in Ely, and therefore she has access to those clients, but it creates difficulties for the defendants when they're picked up in Eureka and then OR'd in Ely, with there being no transportation back and forth. The Eureka Sheriff's Office has a full-time deputy assigned to do the transport for inmates that have to come back and forth to court. And in fact, we're looking to hire a second replacement transport deputy. In discussions with the district attorney there's a possibility that at some point they may reopen that jail, and that could be timed with some mining that's increasing in the area. They're estimating in the next 2 to 3 years that their population is going to double, which would indicate a need to open the jail and for us to reassess the .3 contract in Eureka. White Pine County is still being covered by the State Public Defender's Office with two full-time attorneys assigned there, in addition to having James Hoffman covering some of the appearances. As long as that office remains staffed with the 2+ attorneys, I don't see any problem in White Pine County. Their caseload is actually down a little bit this year. And so things seem to be caseload-wide okay in White Pine County. The State Public Defender's Office has lost their support staff in Ely, and so there's some questions concerning whether or not that office is open and available to clients on a regular basis, and that's something I'll be looking into on my next visit to White Pine. Finally, there's Esmeralda County. Esmeralda County has an extremely low caseload. Jason Ernest has the contract there and has recently re-upped that contract. He covers Goldfield as part of his contract with Nye County to cover the northern part of Nye County, Tonopah and Beatty. And so it's convenient to have the same contract attorney with Esmeralda County as with northern Nye County. Those are the reports on the other 5 counties. And with the chair's permission, I'll address other Nye County issues on agenda item number 8.
Sounds good. Are there any questions? This is an oversight update for discussion and possible action. Does anyone have any questions or further comments?
Madam Chair, I have a question for David. David, it's Joni in Tonopah.
Hi, Joni.
And I'm so sorry. I apologize. It's not about the oversight, but it could be related to that. I neglected to mention during the approval of the minutes, I wanted to clarify something. On page 13, you stated that you met with Justice of the Peace Clapper. She said that they had taken steps to remedy the feeding of transported inmates by giving them a sack lunch at the noon break. So I just want to clarify, the judge is feeding inmates from the Pahrump jail?
No,
and it's not the...
No, she was just indicating that they were being fed, not that she was responsible for feeding them.
Oh, okay. The way the minutes read, the court was giving them. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Easley. All right. Anyone else have any questions for our outreach advisor, Mr. Sheik?
Yes, Madam Chair, may I ask Mr. Sheik a question?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Regarding, I know it is Nye County, but since we were on the topic of Tonopah and Esmeralda, are any clients being housed in Tonopah, or are they all going to Pahrump? And have you been able to discern whether or not there are issues related to attorney-client contact and discussions because of that?
The jail in Tonopah remains closed, and there are some issues that have come up. Inmates that have cases in Tonopah are being housed in Pahrump and transported for their court appearances, which has caused some interference with the ability of counsel to talk with the clients before court. Jason Ernest has expressed to me that he's been up there. He tries to get there early in the morning in order to meet with clients, and if they're not transported on time, they're actually getting to court when court is starting, and the court has been taking breaks to allow him the time to talk to his clients. But that is, just as with Eureka, that is an issue with housing inmates so far away from where their court appearance is.
And Madam Chair, the district court judges have expressed that same frustration to me.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Sheik.
You're welcome.
We will note that. Okay. Any other questions or comments on the oversight update?
I would happily turn it over to Mr. Lopez if he's on to update regarding his notes and observations.
There he is. Okay, Derek, there you are. Take it away.
So hello everyone. The five counties that I'm assigned to are Douglas, Elko, Humboldt, Lander, Pershing, and I've started to watch Lyon County. So I've got maybe 5 court sessions now, maybe 7 court sessions that I've observed, in one in Fernley, 2 in Yarrington's Justice Court, 2 in the district court there. I've actually made it to 3 in Dayton Justice Court. So I've got a handful. And it, for the most part, appears to be running well. There is high volume. There was an issue on one day that already had a high volume of clients where the power, I believe, was intentionally turned off by the power company, but in any event, the power went out. So court made it through maybe the first hour of hearings and then had to continue everything else. And so then the following justice court date was really a long calendar. The attorneys do appear to know their clients, to have met with them, to be doing a good job in representing them, but the volume certainly is a concern. But again, a small window of time that I'm seeing, and that may not be the normal calendar. I can confirm that when I was in Fernley, I did observe the paralegal that Ms. Mayo was addressing, that they did have a confidential room to go into. And there's a glass window so I can see in. It does appear that the paralegal does have like an iPad or computer where the attorney is talking to the client through that video with the paralegal present, and that they're calling the clients in one by one and meeting with all the clients before court. Court went smoothly, so I can confirm that I'm seeing what she's described. With regard to the number of attorneys that the Mansfield Mayo firm has, I haven't seen all of them. So I've seen Miss Mayo. I think she does an excellent job. I've seen her solely in Humboldt County. I think she's done a very good job with high volume. With regard to Nestor Marcial Martinez, he's new to the Mansfield Mayo firm. I had a chance to watch him for quite a few times while he was with the Elko Public Defender's Office. He does a good job in meeting with his clients and being prepared and representing them well from what I saw in Elko. My limited observation of him now that he's with the Mansfield Mayo firm, he was appearing by video. In Elko, I saw him appearing in person. And again, he's representing them well. He appears to have met with them and things look good. But I am old and I am old school, and I do have a preference for the attorneys being present in court, but I recognize that's old. That's not the current reality. But I have seen at times, not with Nestor, not with Mr. Mansfield, but I have seen at times with the attorneys where it does seem to pose a problem that the attorney is appearing by Zoom and the client's in person in court. It seems to work better when both attorney and client are present, or both attorney and client are appearing by video, because when there is a question from the attorney, they can go into a private Zoom break room. Whereas when one's on video and one's in court, you don't have that same ability. So it can make for the hearing being a little more difficult, and it can result in some continuances to give more opportunity for the client to talk to the attorney. So I do have concerns with regard to the video appearances, but it is a reality, and for the most part, they seem to go well. So in terms of the 5 counties, Douglas County appears to be running well. They've got 4 experienced attorneys for 4 of the contracts. On a 5th contract, they've got an attorney that's covering from misdemeanor to low B felonies, and appears to be doing a good job. Clients appear to like him, and same for the most part with the other 4. There's always a client now and then, the one-off, that will express some dissatisfaction as to how an attorney might communicate with the client or something. But it appears to be going well. And I know that Brian Filter, who is present in the meeting, is the coordinator for Douglas County's Indigent Defense. And he's been assigning a 6th spot to hourly DIDS attorneys. I've had a chance to watch a number of them. And again, it seems to be going well. They appear to be doing a good job. So I don't currently have any concerns with Douglas County. With Elko, the Public Defender's Office had been doing a very good job. I think they still are. But the reality is they're down even another attorney. And temporarily, they've got one on medical leave. So Currently, the office has 5 attorneys, one of them being on medical leave. So they're able to take fewer cases right now. So more cases are going to the hourly DIDS attorneys. The 4 that they currently have that are taking cases, one of them is pretty brand new. I think he just passed the bar this year. So he's not handling a lot of cases other than appearing as stand-in counsel when necessary for another attorney where he's familiar with the file. He knows what the plan is for that day, but very, very new and needs to get more experience. With the hourly attorneys there has been a couple, hopefully one-offs, but a couple concerns. And DITS has been addressing that. So one of them was an attorney had filed a motion with citations that were not accurate. And apparently that was a AI written motion that hadn't been properly reviewed by the attorney before it being filed, but that's being addressed. Other than that, the attorneys appear to be doing a good job. You've got attorneys coming from Vegas and Reno. We did have one video appearance issue that hopefully was a one-off, and it resulted in a continuance. The client was out of custody and the matter was just going to be set for trial. But at the same time, they continued that trial setting hearing because of the video issue and an inability to calendar the trial due to those difficulties. With regard to Humboldt County, I know that Andrew Coates is in the meeting as well, but as already expressed, the Public Defender's Office has no current attorneys housed there. As Homa mentioned, we did get a chance to see the office that they have. It's been set up pretty well. I was impressed with the office. If I were looking to work in an office, I liked it. I think that's a good office for the Public Defender's Office. Hopefully they can staff it with attorneys soon. But right now they don't have any. Again, Massey Mayo did a very good job. I saw a number of other attorneys that did a very good job. So I think the representation is good. The volume and caseload appeared to be heavy for some of the attorneys. Other attorneys are just taking the cases that they're choosing to take, and so their caseload doesn't appear to be bad or heavy. With Lander County and Pershing County, both of those, as I think everyone knows, lost their district judge. He passed away. They just had interviews on Monday of this week and narrowed the field from 4 to 3. Hopefully, a district judge will be picked soon. In the interim, they've got senior judges that are filling in, and both of those counties have experienced public defenders. Lander County's attorney has over 30 years, not all of it is public defense, but over 30 years of legal experience and much or most of it criminal. The Pershing County's public defender has been a public defender, my understanding, at least 15 years or approximately 15 years. And both of them appear to be doing a good job. I don't have any concerns with either of those two. Lander does have a conflict counsel, but they don't have that many conflicts, so I don't see that attorney too often. Pershing County, to my knowledge, has still a vacant conflict attorney position open, but their DIDS is assigning hourly attorneys for conflicts in the interim. So I don't really have any concerns there either. With Lyon County, again, it's very new for me. My concern, just looking at the few hearings I've seen so far, is the volume. As mentioned in the report, the Brock Law Firm is I think the word was subcontracting with. I don't think there's actually a contract, but Ray Eroshenko is taking approximately 50% of the cases for the Dayton Justice Court, and he takes them from start to finish. They divided those cases. A through L goes to one attorney, and M through Z. So A through L goes to Ray Eroshenko. M through Z is covered by Cale Brock. I don't know that it's exactly 50%, but again, both attorneys appear to be doing a good job. It's just on the few calendars I've seen, the volume appears pretty heavy. I know that Brock is also getting assistance, as the report mentions, the monitor's report from Carl Hyland. I've only seen him a few times. He appears very experienced and to be doing a good job. I've heard, but have not seen yet, that John Cadledge is assisting with some cases. I don't know what percentage of cases, or if it's just here and there, but he's assisting Brock's law firm to some extent. And again, with the Mansfield Mayo firm, of the 5 attorneys that was mentioned, I've only seen Ms. Mayo, Mr. Mansfield, and Marcial Martinez. So the concern there is the caseload of the volume, and it may be that it's being well handled. It just looks like a lot. And I guess that's really all I have to report. If there are questions, I can do my best to try and answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Mr. Coates, you had popped on a minute ago. I don't know if you had some comments about the offices that were being discussed.
Well, thank you. And I can address this when it's my turn on the agenda, I suppose, but
Okay. I
yeah.
just saw you jump on, so I didn't want to miss the opportunity to hear from you. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lopez. Thank you, Mr. Sheik. Is there any question? Are there any questions, additional comments?
Madam Chair, if I may, for Mr. Lopez.
Yes,
this is
of
Jared
course.
Hickman.
Go ahead, Mr. Hickman.
Thank you. I guess regarding Lyon County, the first thing I wanted to say is I really appreciate Ms. Mayo providing public comment today. I think her feedback as the actual boots on the ground providing the representation is invaluable, and I'm encouraged to see attorney participation at these meetings. I think we need more of it because that's the type of feedback we want to hear. And the virtual representation, the hybrid representation, I think is just sort of a fact of life now. And it sounds like they have stood up some processes to facilitate that and are facilitating that well. But outside of the Massey and Mansfield firm, Mr. Lopez, have you noticed any, I guess, other issues with the hybrid or virtual hearings that are impacting cases and resulting in continuances? And I guess the second part of that question is, when virtual appearances are being made, are they primarily for matters that are getting continued for one way or another, or are substantive matters being addressed with an attorney on one end and a client in the room?
So from what I've seen, first, I do want to say that the problems I've seen with the video appearances by the attorneys, none of those were with the Mansfield Mayo firm. They do appear to be well prepared, and I haven't seen the issues there. But where I have seen issues have been both at substantive hearings, where one of the hearings was scheduled for a change of plea or entry of a guilty plea pursuant to negotiations and a guilty plea agreement. And the client appeared very nervous. The client was appearing from video from the jail. The attorney was appearing by video from their office, or at least somewhere other than the jail, and not in the court. And the judge picked up on how nervous the client seemed. And after going through part of the canvas, asked the client if he needed more time to talk to his attorney and if the continuance would be something he would like. And you could see immediate relief on the client's face. That would be wonderful. And so the matter ended up being continued, but that was scheduled as a substantive hearing. That client was very young. I think he was 18 years old, 17 at the time the offense was committed. But he just looked very, very young, very, very scared. And, from the standpoint of watching as an observer, it just seemed it would have been so much better if the attorney had been there with them.
Absolutely.
But they've been both for substantive hearings, for change of pleas, for sentencing. I can't think of any district court sentencings off the top of my head that were the attorney appearing virtually. It may be that I have seen that, but none are popping into my head, my memory. I have seen them for entry of plea, both in district court, justice court. I have seen sentencings in justice court where they're appearing by video. And, 90% of those, there's no hiccup. It goes smoothly. The judge follows the agreement, and it doesn't appear to have had any negative impact that it was a virtual appearance. It's just the one-offs where it appears the client has questions, the client's nervous, that it makes it a little bit difficult to facilitate further conversation. So I've seen in some courts where the attorney's present in court and it's the client appearing by video, and the attorney will ask for a recess so that he can step outside and place a phone call to his client to be able to answer any questions. And then it comes back and goes smoothly. And I've seen where it results in continuances that might not have been necessary if both had been present together. But then again, it still might have needed a continuance. So I don't know to what extent it really is causing problems in the few cases that it appears to result in continuances. It may be those cases would have needed to be continued either way. But it's been both for substantive change of pleas, entry of pleas, at the justice court level sentencings, where there's both virtual appearance by client and attorney, virtual by one and in person by the other. Most often when it's a virtual appearance, it's the attorney that's virtual and the client that's present in person.
Thank you.
I don't know if that
Very
answers your
much.
question, but hopefully
It does. Thank you. And I just had one other follow-up question regarding the subcontract you mentioned with the Mr. Brock's firm. You said you said subcontract and then said you didn't know if there is a contract. I was wondering if you could elaborate on that a little further. Has any contract been proffered, or is it just a handshake agreement, or what is your knowledge on that?
Well, my knowledge is, and this may have changed, but when I asked, it was verbal. It was a handshake. There was no written contract. Whether that's changed between the time I asked and now, I don't know. I haven't seen a contract. And I assume they would tell me if they've now got a written contract. But
Yes.
I assume it's still a handshake.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. And just to be clear, that's for Dayton, which I think is the busiest of the Lyon County Justice Courts. It appeared to be the busiest of the courts. Mr. Brock, my understanding, is handling all of the Yarrington and Fernley cases, with the exception of cases where he asked Mr. Heinlein or occasionally Mr. Eroshenko to take a case. And my understanding is that when they do assist, they're taking it from start to finish. But perhaps there are some cases where they just stand in for that particular hearing. But Eroshenko said he's taking the cases start to finish.
Okay.
If I could follow on those answers, this is Homicide for the record. Regarding the most recent question, in the email exchange I had with Mr. Sheik, where I ran the open cases number, Brock has 823 open cases in legal server. Now, obviously, like in the email, you'll end up seeing that, when you run the numbers differently, and are some of these ones that should be closed, but it is something that we're trying to look further into to understand. And then one attorney had sort of casually mentioned to us, quote, like, I get $200 an hour to cover hearings for Mr. Brock. That was just, we didn't necessarily follow up with, oh, do you have a contract? That was how it was expressed to us. And then regarding the situation that Mr. Lopez had observed, Deputy Director Roberts and I were present for that. And then in my write-up, I have some more details about those concerns that we had when, for the young individual, the attorney had kind of gone into the Zoom room maybe 1 to 2 minutes and came back and indicated that the client was on suicide watch. That would be something that you'd think possibly the attorney would have known going into the hearing had they been able to or been on site with their client. And in that same hearing, I wrote the start and stop times of hearings just to help myself keep track of trailing and how the day was going. Our office received an email from that attorney in the middle of the hearing, unrelated to the hearing, the attorney appeared to be typing while the case was going on, while discussions were happening, and I remarked to Deputy Director Roberts, looks like they're emailing someone, and then she noticed, wow, they were emailing us about something else. So I would say this is an item that's for discussion and possible action. I think that definitely maybe separating out the virtual appearances. There are certain ADKTs about what's appropriate. Maybe if the board is interested, we can kind of do a breakdown or a brief presentation at a future meeting about what's the baseline rules, maybe some best practices that attorneys are employing, hybrid or otherwise, and then see if it's a rulemaking opportunity for the board to say, look, here's the baseline. We want to be able to trust your judgment. Or then sometimes things come up and you got a case yesterday and you cannot make it or be in two places at once, but it is becoming a concern. Also, I note in my memo, there's references to chats with judges during the hearing, and I don't know how those records are being maintained and what is being said in those chats. So we heard judges saying, oh, I noticed someone in the chat said something about wanting to be called next. We have no visibility on that, and that might, be something to look into as well about preserving records and what is actually being said that maybe we don't know about. So definitely, obviously, I don't want to put words in the board's mouth, but we are absolutely open and interested in continuing to look at how we can put guardrails to allow people to be creative, to allow people to be effective, but then maybe say, look, as a baseline, we really, if you cannot be there for some of these things, then maybe you shouldn't, be having a case that far away. And then I would know, Mr. Lopez told me yesterday about being approached by a judge who was, had some concerns about an attorney who had never appeared in person in their courtroom except for once. And then I believe the client was in person and was surprised to see that their attorney was not only not present in the courtroom, but wasn't present online. And we're verifying the individual's name. It sounds like the individual who was covering for that attorney is not authorized on our list. So there's a lot of things that can kind of happen, and we're going to look into that. But I had just heard about that yesterday from Mr. Lopez, so obviously we haven't had a chance to delve into it.
Thank you. I'd like to hear from Ms. Bush. I think Susan has a few things to say, and I know she's been patiently waiting here. Oh, hang on, you're muted, Susan. There you go.
There we go. Sorry. I was going to say that ADK 0581, the Supreme Court rule says what you can appear virtually and not virtually on for criminal cases. It's a simple chart, and that's what the monitors and everybody should be looking at. Is it allowed by the Supreme Court or not? Is this a virtual appearance? And I don't think it should be subjective, like, well, your client, maybe you should be there because there was some miscommunication. I think it should just be, did it meet a virtual appearance or not? And if it's not meeting the rule where you can appear virtual, the attorney needs to be in person. And that's what we go by in Clark County, and that's a chart our judges use.
Thank you. That's great input.
And if I could just jump in
Yeah,
briefly,
go ahead, Mr.
Peter
Handy.
Handy, for the record, I think it's a good training ground, right? If attorneys are still having trouble with this, we can certainly instruct them. Here's what the ADKT says. Here are the local rules involved, because it still varies from court to court and jurisdiction to jurisdiction, how courts want to see attorneys appearing, if they need to get pre-approval to appear remotely. And certainly the courts should be aware. And I think confident, right, that the attorneys appearing for them that are coming from our department are aware of the local rules, that they're prepared to comply, that they are meeting their clients' needs while still respecting the court's needs to have these procedural safeguards in place, right? So that everyone's kind of aware that we have this, there's a minimum bar, and that we expect everyone to meet that minimum bar, but also to comply with whatever is needed to both do what's best for their clients and meet whatever local requirements are necessary to be met.
I know there were some, and for the record, this is Jared Hickman. I know there were some new forms related to the oversight function at the last meeting. I don't remember. Is that ADKT on virtual appearances baked into those oversight forms? Should it be? If not, how can we, I guess, how can we ensure we're taking a look at that and ensuring compliance with the ADKT and effective representation on that end?
This is Homosayar. So we are obviously redoing the forms. That was part of also going along with some of the other attorneys to see how it works in real time, what they're writing down, what they're tracking. Right now, it just sort of, they're indicating whether it's virtual, but it's not a tie back. We could actually do like a toggle. We were talking about moving it to an Excel spreadsheet. So it would be, it could be tied to type of hearing, and then, it would populate, is this in person? Is this Zoom? So that we're catching that and guiding that. So yeah, we had some discussions about that. So right now the form asks, but it doesn't tie back to, we see the type of hearing, but then than sometimes the judges are allowing them, that seem to be in conflict with the Supreme Court's direction. And so I appreciate Board Member Bush's remarks. Is definitely don't want to reinvent the wheel, just sort of where should we or how should we put, assurances from attorneys doing this work that they have read it, that they are aware of it, that they will comply. I hate to do that, but at the same time, we should be making it easy for them to comply and making sure they know about it.
Yeah, and Peter Haney, for the record, I think it's important, right, that the 80 KT is the floor, and we should be holding attorneys to a higher standard because we're supposed to be focusing on what their clients' needs are. Certainly, the criminal justice standards have higher requirements for meeting with your clients than the 80 KT kind of allows. It has some presumptive areas, it has some gray areas to what appearances remotely are appropriate or not appropriate. But there is some permissive flexibility in that, and that might not be the level we want to hold our attorneys accountable to. So when we were talking about earlier, maybe the board wants to take some stance or position on this is what's recommended. That's something that's available that has some, basis, not just in the 80 KT that says this is what's presumptive, but also this is what's recommended as the standard in the profession.
Would it be possible to, and I know that's not specifically on the agenda today, would it be possible for our next board meeting or, a future board meeting to address that? Because it seems like the virtual appearances are an issue that is of concern to the monitor. And we can look at what other states are doing, what the 80 KT is actually, and, make a decision on how the department approaches that.
Peter Haney, for the record, we can certainly add that to a future agenda.
Great.
Question, this is Chris.
Hi, Chris, go for it.
Just in the monitor's report, they also mentioned something called stand-in. Is that something we should add into that discussion if there's going to be some procedures put into play, or at least discussed?
Peter Haney, for the record, yes, I think that's fundamentally tied to that as well,
Okay.
right? Is
Not being
when and how standby counsel is appearing for counsel. It really affects, what our goals for vertical representation and for client-centered representation. So I think it's an important and necessary component for that.
Okay, thank you.
Great. David, Mr. Figler, go ahead.
Yeah, when I was a DIS attorney, I don't recall, though I might be mistaken, but I think I agree with everything that Jared and Peter just said. I think that should be on the next agenda. But in the interim, why not just send out maybe an email to everyone with the standards that we do have, maybe attach the 80 KTs just so that they know that they exist and that we do expect at a baseline or a minimum for everyone to comply with these, especially with these, these areas of virtual appearances and stand-ins and, substitute appearances, et cetera, whatever it might be. But no harm in just kind of reminding everybody of what is there. But I think we should also, strive for something more significant than the baseline. Anyway, that was it.
Thank you.
For the record, I think that's a great idea and we're happy to do that. But then also considering that we should have input from attorneys who are experiencing this, it might be a good opportunity to invite those attorneys to give us some feedback about what they're seeing or, and say, this is the baseline and we're examining it. And so we'd be happy to hear what's working, what isn't working and start that dialogue. And I know when we get to the training discussion, there's been discussions about sort of standing meetings and sort of roundtables and opportunities for people to, talk about these topics that may not rise to a full-blown CLE or something like that, but are important to be talking about with folks.
Yeah, great idea. Practitioner input is invaluable here.
And this is Jared Hickman for the record. That was the exact direction that I was going to suggest, was that it may be the basis for a half-hour CLE and then, sort of brown bag attorney workshop where experiences and strategies are discussed together. And then it sort of, feeds into both those training and mutual assistance roles.
Okay. So I feel like we've got some good direction for item for next agenda. In the meantime, we've got a short-term action to send out the reminder to the attorneys, and then with the other agenda item coming for longer discussion at our meeting in February, if that sounds right. If there's no further discussion, I'd love a motion to accept the oversight update.
This is Chris. I'll make
So moved.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Chris.
I'll second Joni's.
Okay, there you go. Joni and Chris with the first and the second. Thank you. Is there any more discussion? All right.
No, just good report. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, great discussion and great direction. If that's it, let's take the vote. Everyone that's in favor of accepting the oversight update, please say aye.
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 Any opposition? Great. That motion carries, and we'll move on to item number 6, which is our Davis litigation update. And so I'll turn it over to Mr. Handy or Professor Hanan.
And I'd certainly yield the floor to Professor Hanan if she's here and available to discuss her most recent report. She's certainly the expert on it.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the Executive Director, Mr. Handy. I am available to answer any questions that anyone may have about the report. And I just also want to thank the department for being so helpful. After our last board meeting, I'd heard more areas of concern, and so I asked for more documents. It was a lot. It was all shared with me, and I was able to include that in this report. And again, I'm open to any questions you have, but I wanted to give that thanks to the department for working so closely with me to make this report happen.
Thank you. It was a great report. Are there any questions on the report for Professor Hanan?
This is Allison Jaffe.
Go
I've
ahead,
got a
Ms.
couple
Jaffe.
of things. Thank you.
Certainly.
I do want to mention that since our last board meeting, there has been a very good improvement on CLE that has been offered to the board members as well as to the attorneys. The two ones that I think are so important right now are the mental health and the substance abuse. Those are kind of hard to find, especially free ones. So I would like to really thank Brenda for stepping up and getting that done. After reading the report, I still have a real concern, and it sounds like Eve does too, regarding the staff and an experienced criminal defense attorney. I think we need to figure out a way to have attorneys with real experience, either a one staff member, which is what I suggested last time, or one of the things that we could look at would be consultants. So if we could maybe list consultant expertise areas, and if the attorneys had something they really wanted to talk about, there could be a resource as the attorney is preparing for trial and also in trial. I think criminal defense is something very different from most other practices, and really attorneys need to talk to somebody who has experienced at least some of the same issues. And I don't know where we are with death penalty qualifications. I would like to see us actually do a CLE on that and maybe refer some people to some of the longer term seminars, the week-long seminars, so that some of the attorneys who want to could become death penalty qualified. I like the idea, and I would ask that we jump on it for CLEs done by contract attorneys, and maybe we could find some expertise within those attorneys offering CLEs. I know it's credits. It's credit for the attorney putting on the training, so they do get some assistance, but I think also monetary assistance. Let's see. I think, I don't know what our money situation is, but since we're down attorneys in some of the jurisdictions, so we're not paying them, I think that could be a way to come up with some money for it too. I really appreciate the monitor's report. I think you really got to the specifics, especially the 432B cases. I'm sorry that the state or whoever does not understand the counties that our attorneys cannot be appointed for the 432Bs, and they sure are difficult. So I'm glad we're not doing those. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Jaffe. Peter, do you want to take a stab at the criminal having a criminal consultant or talk about that within the department? Or do you want to take them all at once? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. I did have a couple questions for Professor Hanan, but before we moved on, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
Yeah, go for it.
Yep. I wanted to talk a little. I wanted to ask to get a little more detail about some of the things mentioned in the report. Specifically, Nye County. Professor, you described a meeting on May 22nd regarding applications that were pending, and I feel like I'm probably reading this incorrectly, but I was hoping that you could describe how that shook out, because with respect to the number of attorneys needed, it feels like the commission may have thumbed their nose a little bit at the regulations, and not really addressed the actual number of contracts needed to address the workload. Can you provide a little more information on how that played out?
Sure. Or perhaps it would be helpful if I just say I had heard about other attorneys who had applied, and I couldn't recall hearing a discussion of their applications when I had watched the commission meetings before for the Board of County Commissioners for Nye County. So I went back and I rewatched them, and I can't speak to intent or what happened. That's why it's so just descriptive of what you see as you watch it online, and that's that there had been 14 applicants, including those applying to renew their contracts. 2 had withdrawn, and the discussion happened on the record regarding the number of lines, basically attorney lines that needed to be filled. And it was said on the record, well, they're telling us 12, but I don't know if we need 12. A piece of that puzzle is this question of accurate caseload reporting and an issue of not having a program administrator, an appointed counsel program administrator there who can help the attorneys make sure their case reporting is accurate and cases are closed. I don't mean to discount that. I know that Mr. Sheik has also talked about that in his oversight reports. But the point being, when the commission went back on the record, they approved the renewals and the additional contracts, all but for 2, and those 2 just simply weren't discussed. So I'm pointing that out in conjunction with noting that this process isn't the same as what the county plan requires, So whatever's happening, it's not happening the way it needs to happen. And I'm not, I don't know what the intent is. There are lots of different issues that play, but I wanted to make sure that that was clear.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to add a comment, and Peter and I have discussed this. I think it's really important that the county commissioners, I don't care what county it is, but particularly Nye County, because that seems to be where a lot of the focus is, that the county commissioners have be given or forwarded a copy of the monitor's report as soon as the board gets it. I don't want to say they're making decisions in a vacuum, but I'll use that phrase. Unless they know the specifics of what we're concerned about that are in the monitor's report, we're going to continue to have problems like this. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Joni. Do we know if that has been discussed with the board at all or provided? Do they know what they're acting on? Was there information in the staff report, for example?
I would punt that to Mrs. Dellinger.
Yeah, thank you, Joni and Madam Chair. Yes, they are aware.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did you have?
Is there an action item available for us? I mean, is there something for us to discuss with regard to a memo from Peter or from the board or someone else regarding this discrepancy now?
Well, as part of accepting the monitor's report or reviewing it, it's for discussion and possible action. So unless the DAG tells me that I'm venturing outside of my areas of authority here, I think that, we can certainly make a motion to ask the director to move in a certain direction. Todd, am I?
Yeah, I'm thinking about this one. It's a close call because I mean, obviously, the normal action for this item is the acceptance of the latest Davis report.
We could give direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, it calls out some items that need some additional attention.
Would a motion for something related to Nye County or this issue be more appropriate under number 8?
Yeah. Todd is giving, so we can say.
Yeah, it might fit better under 8.
Okay.
Okay. This is Chris. Whenever you're done, I still have a couple questions on the monitor's report too.
Okay. Thank you, Christy. Take it away.
Oh, okay. I was concerned because there was a statement made, which was very telling. And I think after being on this board since its inception, it's frustrating to me. But there are still concerns with Nye County's admin, apparently, with the workload standards and study, and that they don't necessarily agree with it. And that may be why some of this is becoming a problem. So I think we need to flush that out. Commissioners need to be explained. This is the law. This is what's been going on with the monitor. You don't get to just pick and choose who you decide you want to. I'm concerned that they went off the record and come back in on the record. If it's something out of public, you should be discussing it publicly. But I was on the commission for 12 years and I saw how garbage can come in and go out sometimes. There were also questions about rotating training. So I think at some point, as we look at this, we should have some feedback on that part of it. And there was something about Homeland Security issues with the jail that was mentioned, and I think it was in regard to Nye County. It might have been Nye or Lyon. I forgot to write my page numbers down where I was looking. And then I think it was Mr. Lopez, 42 cases for this attorney. On page 11 that was mentioned in the report. And it seemed to me that was kind of overwhelming. So I'm just not sure what our standards are for allowing attorneys to have to pick up that kind of a load. I'll leave it at that for now.
Madam Chair, may I respond
Yes,
to a portion of what Chris said? Hi, Chris, it's Joni in Tonopah. I agree with part of what you said, and I brought this up at the last meeting, and thank you to whoever takes the minutes. It reminded me. But I still have some concerns about the caseload, whether or not the caseloads that are being reported in the monitor's report match what the open cases are that are shown in the district attorney's office. And I don't know how we reconcile those two, but I sure would like to see some kind of a comparison, if it's possible, for the district attorney's office to provide some numbers about what they think the open cases are. And then the second thing is, I continue to hear concerns from some folks in Nye County that it's possible that the public defenders are either not closing their cases or are not closing them correctly. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Certainly. Okay, lots to unpack here, Mr. Handy. I don't know if you want to take a stab at it, or do we have other comments on the monitor's report or do you want to take them piece by piece? Or the ones that you feel comfortable with? I'm going to let you go for it.
Peter Haney, for the record, I can kind of work backwards in some ways. So we can get into a lot of the data for Nye County is included in item 8, where we're going to get in detail as to the legal server case numbers, actual caseloads versus like caseload reporting issues. And there's some, good news, bad news for a lot of those things. I can back up a little bit to some of the comments from member Jaffe, like we want to talk about criminal defense experience. I kind of want to go back to the monitor's report. She makes identifies kind of four chief areas about compliance issues. And so we're addressing all of these, and they're just kind of moving in different directions. So like the first one she mentions is stalled efforts toward county compliance, right? We're looking at Nye County number 8 today. We're going to be having some communications with Cale Brock, as was kind of indicated during Mr. Lopez's report, about how his case was being shared, whether or not there are actual subcontracts. He's got contracts that require him to provide service for up to 5 attorneys to Lyon County. And to us, it's concerning that that's not happening. And there are a variety of problems that might be causing, or that could be causing that problem. So that's kind of a two-pronged approach there, is to communicate with Lyon County officials as to how oversight of their contracts is happening there. And with Cale Brock to really ensure that he understands kind of the risks and obligations of taking on these contracts and not having subcontracts, having a handshake agreement versus a written subcontract, and then kind of following up with the ethical issues that could be causing, like, are the clients aware as to how this is working? Are they consenting where they need to? Is he obtaining waivers if that's what's needed in some of these cases? Just to make sure he understands what's happening, and to see if we can kind of avoid fallout from if there are problems there, and how we might address Lyon County in the future if we need either corrective action, or if the county and the attorneys are going to work to head off corrective action by solving the problems that are already there. Nye County, like I said, discussion section 8, there's a lot to unpack there when it comes to compliance. I'll get into in item 10 for a lot of the other counties. The numbers are actually improving in a lot of places. So again, that's kind of going to be a good news item when it comes to places like Churchill County. You heard already about Eureka County and Lander County. So we're moving in the right direction in a lot of places. Recruitment and retention issues. This is kind of already actually under the subsection C for this item, so I kind of address it here. SB4 from the special session was signed by the governor, so now we're in the process of receiving $3 million into our accounts directly. These aren't going to be behind the kind of paywalls we've seen before, so we don't have to go to IFC every time we're trying to access these funds. We're already earmarking these funds for stipends to the NSPD employees for traveling, so it'd be roughly $1,000 a week for every week that they're traveling, spending, one day overnight in Ely or in Winnemucca. Obviously, it's expensive. It's difficult to get out there. It's difficult to be away from family and friends. And this is a way to help offset all those, personal costs and really try and get people to come into the office or to stay in the office. Part of it's also, like, we've done, a significant part of the monitor's report was kind of dedicated to the survey that she conducted. And it's a lot of really good anecdotal information. And I think what it conveys to me, at least, right, is that there's some work that we can do to better communicate with the attorneys we're working with, to communicate what we're doing policy-wise, communicate with board members, so that everyone kind of understands what's going on. So as a part of that, right, I think what we're going to talk about a little bit later in a different item is, kind of the workloads we have here in our department, I don't think are really manageable for our staff. And that's resulting in some of the issues we're having with communications with attorneys, with board members, is that we're spending a lot of time in kind of the weeds of, we were talking about billing, and we're spending a lot of time on those kinds of things when we could be working on, really working to assist attorneys, really providing the support that they're needing, providing more robust training experience for all of them. And we just need to dig ourselves out of that position. So that's part, I think, that we can apply to use that $3 million for in a constructive way. The third part, right, is that ensuring over compliance with performance standards. And so part of that's what we're talking about today. Like, I love this conversation we're having about the use of standby counsel, the use of remote appearances by attorneys, and whether or not this needs to be worked in the regulatory space. It's training opportunity. As we mentioned before, we are working with the National Association of Public Defenders to provide some technical assistance. It's roughly a 15 to 18 month kind of program. We'll outlay a ton of money that we got from that $3 million to help fund that. The ballpark estimate we got was $150,000 to $180,000 to provide that. At the end, we get a tangible report, and they can recommend best practices, kind of gold standard outcomes from, what an agency could be providing to its members, how the structure is going to work, how to develop, the cultural and structural environment that the attorneys can thrive in and really provide their clients the best services. So part of that is going to be addressing like how we conduct oversight, how the board can best function in that space. I've also been talking with a couple of people about recommending, and I was going to get here kind of an item 7, like, Mr. Coates has practiced a public defender for some time, but not a very long time. He hasn't been a manager for a very long time. As Ms. Javi is talking about, we don't have a lot of combined criminal defense experience. So I think it'd be helpful to bring somebody in who does to help mentor Andrew with the NSPD. Like, that's not an easy office to run. It's geographically disparate. That office has had that kind of geographic disparity in the past. So there's some history that we think we can tap into to get kind of better insight as to how things can better operate, how we can recruit and retain for an office structured like that. And so reaching out to, finding a mentor for Andrew and then reaching out to the NAPD and then doing the same thing for the office. Kind of, it's not just a DIDS only kind of technical assistance, but also the NSPD is its own unit that's providing these services directly to clients. Like, they need to have their own structure for training, for oversight, for supervision of their attorneys, how to provide best services to the clients. And that's something that we don't have the exact experience for, but we certainly are aware there's resources out there, and we're going to be tapping into those. And I think I got into the 4th one kind of already, like, for robust training, right? It's kind of we don't know what we don't know in a lot of cases, but a lot of you guys know what you know, and we'd like to know what you know. And that goes for the attorneys who might be listening to this call too, right, that we work with. We're not on the ground every day. We're not in court with Massey and Patrick. And I hear they're doing a fantastic job. They get like great reviews from their clients, from our oversight attorneys, and I believe they're doing a great job. So hearing more about what's going on from them would be very helpful for us, like, and also to know what they need, right? Because Derek can sit in court and see, I saw this or this not happening or this happening. We can kind of see requests for certain kinds of experts or investigators, but I can't see what they need that they're not asking for from us. So that input, having a dialogue that's open and frequent, would go a long ways to being able to enable us to better provide the services that the attorneys need that they might not be getting. And we're open to creative ideas that haven't been used in the past, right? Like, do you need a social worker? We don't have social workers, but I'm happy to pay for one, right? In some cases, do you have a paralegal that you need because you have a short set trial and you don't have the bandwidth to do all the motion work in limine before trial starts? Like, reach out and you hire a paralegal and we'll work out how to provide those services so that you can get that support on the eve of trial, right? So I think thinking creatively, the attorneys are certainly more than capable of coming with creative solutions for their clients, and we really need to be an integral part of providing those solutions. So hearing from them, I think, is kind of one of the largest pieces that we're not getting, and that kind of loops back to, we need to have better communication with the people we're working towards. So you're going to be hearing hopefully a lot more from us in the next several months. We certainly have tight deadlines because of the amended consent judgment. We're looking at August 30th for compliance date. We'll see kind of in item 10, I'm already recommending, an additional board meeting be held in March. I'm thinking, more frequent input from the board during this time, as we have a lot of fast paced discussions and there are a lot of fast moving parts, that we might have more frequent, more regular meetings. I mean, I recommend something like monthly, but of course that's up to all of you. I certainly appreciate that you're all making the time to begin with and providing all this input. So I think it'd go a long ways to have more regular, frequent meetings. Then we can also I was in a very long meeting yesterday where a rural judge that our attorneys work with kept mentioning, we got to take a bite of the elephant. Well, there's a lot of bites to take here, and if we kind of have more frequent meetings, we can take those bites more regularly, and I think with better communication. So that's kind of my very long story as to how I'm addressing the monitor's report.
Thank you, Mr. Handy. Professor Hanan.
Hi, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to follow up on 2 points. One, I really appreciated hearing from Ms. Mayo today. I look at the workload standards, which say 12 full-time attorneys are required for compliance in Lyon County. And then I look at the contracts and try to figure out how many lawyers there are who have dedicated full-time to working in Lyon County. So from that perspective, I have questions, and it just really helps me to hear from her. I think the other thing that does is it really emphasizes the importance of the oversight attorneys of Mr. Lopez and Mr. Sheik, and hopefully there'll be a third contract filled for oversight as well, since it's a lot of work to do the oversight. I know that's really, and I acknowledge most of what happens in effective assistance of counsel is behind the scenes. It's not in the courtroom. They're the conversations that happen before and after. It's the investigation, it's the legal research, and so forth. So I'm sure now that Mr. Lopez is there in Lyon County, and not just watching court, but getting a chance to talk to the attorneys and learn more about their concerns, their needs, and their accomplishments. There'll be more information about that. And that is, in a sense, separate from the question of workload compliance. Like, are there simply enough attorneys so that the attorneys don't have high caseloads, which are prohibitive of the kind of work you need to do to be effective in every case? And then the second point I wanted to make was just, I do mention the question of virtual appearance of attorneys, and I'm familiar with the ADKT on that. And I appreciated what Mr. Handy said about that. That's really a floor, because the question is often, is there an opportunity to have a confidential meeting with the client before a waiver of rights, for example, or if questions come up? And it can be done effectively. Some of those things can be done, like bail hearings can be done effectively, but it really depends. And so that's another area where the oversight attorneys are so helpful. Is the setup something where, as Mr. Lopez said, the attorney and the client, who are both on Zoom, might be able to go into a Zoom room and have a confidential meeting which resolves questions, or, is where the strategy is decided upon for the next steps. But if that's not possible, then that raises issues, even if it's permissible under this Nevada Supreme Court's order.
Thank you.
Follow up. This is Chris. And I don't
Go
want
ahead,
to
Chris.
I'm going to assume we're going to talk about the recommendations under 8 at some point in time. But if be that as it may, I do think that there's also some discussion, and maybe it's not for this time, but it's more county and sheriff driven. There's a lot of issues about computer access, separate room where people can talk with each other. So maybe we need to develop at some point what is an ideal world, what could be legal, and so that we can try to nip some of this in the bud before it becomes a problem down the road. Because there was quite a few issues within jails, the distance that people have to go. I don't know. Do other rural areas like in Wyoming or Montana do something standard practice that we may not have thought of? So maybe there's just some other places to guide. And I'm happy to do research if that's, to see what's out there. Or maybe for legislative standpoint, maybe NCSL can be asked to do a survey through a legislator to see what's being done in other rural counties for providing indigent defense. How did they deal with housing? How did they deal with training? I think there was a recommendation to rotate training, those types of things. And so maybe we can learn from some other individuals or glean some information from them as well. Like our school districts doing something special for housing to recruit teachers out there. Is there something we could parallel with? Some of this will come down to money next session, but some of it may be coming down to policy, which could be a bill draft down the road or something along those lines. Thank you.
Thank you. Great comments. Okay, dare I move us to the second part of this, which is the State Public Defender workload monitoring and reporting as 6B? Should we dip our toe in that water? I know we covered a little bit of C, the special session and the signing of S before, how much it was, what it will be used for. So I don't know how deeply we need to go into that, but Mr. Handy, do we need to go to 6B?
Yeah, we can go to 6B. I'll just give a very brief update of Peter Handy for the record, I guess. The monitoring and reporting is going well, as far as I can tell. So we ran those reports at the end of the last quarter. We identified where there were some troublesome spots for workloads for individual attorneys and contract of the NSPD. And working with Mr. Coates, we have had Mr. Coates covering Mr. Clauser's cases. Mr. Clauser taken on a contract with Douglas County, which increases caseload a very large amount, as you might imagine, to the point where he was probably exceeding the normal workload numbers. So having Mr. Coates pick up that share of the caseload has kind of put the NSPD in a better position where they're meeting their caseload requirements. Mr. Coates hired an additional attorney who's working in White Pine County. So right now there are 3 active attorneys working in the NSPD's office to handle White Pine County cases. There's also Ms. Kavanaugh Bill's office, who's contracted with to handle the juvenile cases, and Ms. Eberhardy's office, who's covering a portion of the cases. So we have far and above what's necessary to cover the caseload in White Pine County right now, which I think puts the office in an excellent spot to not have too high of workloads. The bigger problem kind of right now, as you're all aware, is Humboldt County, where the 2 attorneys who are working from that office had resigned. They've since gone into other places. Again, Miss Mayo and Patrick Mansfield's firm is picking up a large portion because of the contract they have. We pushed a lot of cases out to conflict counsel. So far, we haven't drained that well yet. I kind of do want to mention, about Miss Mayo's point, right? The numbers aren't the only driving factor of what we look for in effectiveness. There's certainly something we have to look at because they're important to see what's going on. I certainly sympathize with the cost that they have to bear to keep track of all these things. And certainly having to do this on top of all the work they're trying to do for their clients is an additional time, additional cost that nobody wants to do. But it certainly helps us kind of better understand what position an office is in by keeping these records. When we run these reports, it's actually been very clear that there are a lot of cases that they inherited from prior attorneys in that county. Several of the cases they had that were open that we mentioned last meeting were open for over 1,800 days, over 5 years. Clearly, they weren't their firm's cases. They've just been open and never closed by predecessor counsel. And they've made huge efforts just in the last 6 weeks to close a significant number of those cases. Last time I looked, it was over 300 cases were closed. They're still working very hard to close a lot of those cases. I'd really applaud their efforts because they clearly put a lot of time and effort into trying to comply as best they can. We'll be reviewing those workloads again at the end of next quarter as required in the judgment. We'll be running those numbers again. So the end of December, beginning of January. Hopefully we're going to try and I'd like to find time for our staff to help work with them to try and make the process easier. Certainly legal server is not the easiest to work with, especially when it comes to things like case consolidation. We'd hope to kind of find like an expedient way to do it where we can close these misdemeanor cases and move all of that information into the felony case that's a companion case to that. It's proving that there isn't a time-saving way to do it. So we're trying to find a way to account for it in the data in a way that doesn't effectively penalize that firm by showing too many cases without them having to do all that extra work to move the cases because it is so it's a huge amount of time that it takes to do it. They've been very pleasant to work with, and I'm happy to keep working with them in the future. We're also sending potential contractors to Mr. Coates, and Mr. Coates is looking for other potential contractors to help relieve the burden from the office in Humboldt County, so that we're not exhausting all of our conflict attorneys as well. Since as they take more cases, they of course are increasing their workloads. Some of them have contracts in some other counties, some don't. So it varies to a large degree what's going on, and we want to make sure the clients are getting effective representation there. So it's kind of a work in progress, and we'll of course be keeping you up to date as we go through this.
Great. Questions on the workload monitoring and reporting? Mr. Coates, I know you're waiting patiently for number 7, so is there anything else we wanted to say, Mr. Handy, about the special session item 6C and SB4?
Other than the session wasn't needed. Sorry, that was.
Give us $3 million.
Yeah, it's nice to get $3 million. That's not, every time I go now to session, it gets mentioned. Oh, we hear about Davers every time, and you keep coming back asking for more. And yeah, if you give us all the money up front, we wouldn't have to keep doing this. If you wouldn't put it into a contingency account, we wouldn't have to keep coming back from ISC. So this is like the first time I think that they've actually put money into a bucket that says, here's money, go forth and comply. And you don't have to keep coming back for all these things. And we're going to try to make the most of it because we haven't been given this opportunity before. And we don't want to have to keep coming back, on 2-month rotation to keep having to go again and ask for, in some cases, the same things we've been asking for in the past. So.
And Madam Chair, if I can ask a quick clarifying
question. Go ahead,
Jared. Just to make sure this isn't going into a contingency account that we were dealing with Ms. Ryba before her termination where we had to show up and ask for access to it. This is going directly in your account for Davis compliance is the only restriction that's on it. And hopefully this will be part of the budget moving forward.
Yes, Peter Haney for the record, yes, is going directly to our account. It'll be, I think the decision unit or the account number we landed on was category 51. So a new category for just this purpose for Davis compliance and for stipends. It is a $3 million allocation through the 2 years. So we'll get the $3 million. Anything we don't spend by the end of this fiscal year balances forward to the next fiscal year. And then, of course, we'll be asking to that have that included in our base budget because if it's necessary now, it's going to be necessary in the future to continue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Congratulations. It's a big step.
Yeah, thanks.
Something to be said for persistence.
Thanks to anybody else out there who helped put in calls or boots on the ground efforts. I certainly appreciate it.
Great. All right. Any other discussion on item number 6? And if not, I would love to entertain a motion to accept the Davis litigation updates.
This is Chris. I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Do I have
I'll
a second? Thank you, Mr. Figler. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all of those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposition? Great. All right, finally, Mr. Coates, you are on deck for item number 7, which is a public defender status update on Humboldt County office. This one is also for discussion and possible action, so please take it away.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, as you all know, both of my attorneys resigned over the same weekend for different reasons. One had personal issues, which I will not get into, but the other one was simply offered a much higher salary by Washoe County.
Thank you. Maybe we should make Washoe have to pay a stipend back to us.
I would say so, but
we're actually down an attorney as well. So just, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So there is that. I do want to say a huge thank you to Mansfield Mayo. They've been excellent to work with as we deal with this transition. We still have 2 investigators, and we did hire a legal secretary who will be starting mid-December. So she will be in the office for anyone who comes to the office in Winnemucca. So there is that. So no attorneys as thus far, but 2 investigators and 1 legal secretary. Ely, or White Pine, on the other hand, is doing quite well. We just hired Patricia Erickson, who is extremely experienced, and she is doing very well so far. And yeah, and we do have a legal secretary remotely for the White Pine office. So happy to entertain any questions that you may have.
Great. Part of the agenda item includes physical office status and recruitment and retention, which I think you touched on a little bit. Do you want to cover those as well? Do you have, or if you don't want to include anything else on that, we can certainly take it all as one.
Well, that's pretty much all I have to say.
Okay, perfect. That's all good. I just didn't want to deny you the option to go in deep on some of those. All right, any questions for Mr. Coates or comments? Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I appreciate what he's put together. It sounds like the office will be good working conditions now for the new hire. Any thoughts on what we could do to help? I know, does it really just still come down to salary and the income business?
It does.
Then I think we have to be honest with the ledge and the governor's office and say, hey, here's what we need in order to be able to comply. Otherwise, they're not gonna sign off on the monitor, and I wouldn't if I were them come September. So I think we've got to have some come to Jesus, so to speak, conversations with somebody at some point.
Yep. So at present, we are offering 150,000 K for a senior chief deputy.
What? Oh, sorry.
And Washoe County is offering 200,000 apparently. So.
Yeah, just for a little bit of clarification, we did a class and compensation study almost 2 years ago now to right size our salaries with the Western region, and did not in any sense go for the highest, did not want to be the lowest any longer. So we hit right in the middle. So if it's for what it's worth, we are not, compared to all the other jurisdictions that we were put up against, we picked that very middle salary structure. So for what it's worth, you're going to be at the very low end for what you're offering. So there's just, I mean, we're not excessively high. So I think that's part of the argument that for the salaries that need to be adjusted.
Yeah, and Peter Handy, for the record, I think the 150,000 that Andrew's mentioning is actually employer paid PERS contributions. The county is all employer paid PERS contributions, so a significant disparity in your take home check after they take home that chunk of PERS contribution out of the amount your salary is paying.
Is that in statute? Because usually it's employer paid for your state people.
It's optional at the state level, so you can elect to either have it be employer paid or employer split. But the amount that's advertised is always that employer split.
Okay, that might be a policy we take a look at and discuss, because personally, I think you should do employer paid. That then is part of what your roll up is, and that might keep with retention because you need your 5 years to be able to get in. So there's some win-wins that could be argued there. I won't disclose I'm a PERS recipient.
And whatever we can do to support here at Washoe County, I know that we would be willing to do as well, because you all know attracting and retaining that staff saves far more money than the, additional salary that could be applied towards it. Every time you lose someone, there's a significant cost, not just to the staff that you're losing, but spreading that workload over the remaining individuals so cases can move forward. And and that causes others to leave. I mean, it's a vicious cycle. So however we can help, please let us know.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, Peter Haney, for the record again. I think that kind of dovetails into that need for like technical assistance to build a program for the NSPD itself and for bringing in somebody to be a mentor for Andrew. So I don't know if anybody here is willing to be a mentor for Andrew. If you know of somebody who would be an excellent mentor, somebody who has public defender experience, somebody who has office experience, office management experience, there are several retired public defenders with that kind of experience that might be interested in either, potentially paid or unpaid position kind of doing that. But it's something where, because if you have a lot of staff turnover, it's hard to train people, and there's a huge loss in institutional knowledge when that happens. So anything that could be made available to Andrew where that institutional knowledge still resides, that they can kind of impart, that can help kind of rebuild that kind of loss of knowledge and expertise would be very helpful.
And this is Jared Hickman for the record. After our last meeting, I've met with Mr. Handy and his staff twice, and the mentorship opportunity for the state public defender is something we've discussed. And I think we've got a short list and hopefully growing list of names to kind of look at for filling that role. So I think our loose plan or tentative plan is to open those conversations next week.
This is Chris. If there's monetary needs to even get the mentorship, can you use some of that 3 million potentially for that, like cover their mileage if they're going to go out, or enticing folks that have already retired but that might want to come back and benefit? Peter, do you think?
Peter Haney, for the record, I think having a robust, well-trained, well-overseen NSPD is essential to Davis compliance.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we have the monitor here if she wants to weigh in, but so yeah, I think we certainly that $3 million can be used to pay for those kinds of things.
And this is Chris. I'm ancient. I'm not an attorney, but I go back to when JJ was our state public defender, if anybody even remembers JJ. And so we were having those problems when I was in the ledge. So we need to be honest and make our case. And if that means we need to do a caseload study specifically for the state public defender's office, maybe we need to do that so we can present that and start building our cards on the ask down the road.
Certainly.
Thank you. All right. Are there further questions or comments for Mr. Coates on item number 7?
This is Jared Hickman for the record. One more question. I think Mr. Sheik had some concerns earlier regarding whether or not the White Pine County office was open and available to clients. And so if I'm recalling that correctly, it might be worth hearing from Mr. Sheik on that, and then how the state public defender is addressing that concern, if I'm recalling that comment correctly.
Thank you, and it is available. We have an attorney there every other week. So
every other week?
Well, we alternate the attorneys. So one goes up from Las Vegas. So there's someone there every week.
They just alternate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Did you get your answer, Mr. Hickman?
I think so, and maybe it would be worthwhile to hear from Mr. Sheik as well, because I thought he had a concern as to whether that was actually the case.
Go ahead, Mr. Sheik.
Yeah, my understanding was that when the attorneys are in court or if the attorneys are wherever they're at, the office is closed. It's not, I mean, there's not a office staff person that is staffing the office. There's not a legal secretary in Ely that the individual we had moved on or retired, or I'm not sure where she went, but there had been a office staff available, and this is something that had been mentioned to me by the judges, that they had a concern that the clients could not go to a physical office to drop off paperwork or pick up paperwork or ask questions. And I believe the alternating weeks, I think the attorneys are up there Monday through Thursday every other week. I think that's the way they work. And if I heard Mr. Coates correctly, that he's now hired another attorney, Patty Erickson, um, that's an additional body that'll be there to assist with that. But the concern is having legal secretarial staff located in Las Vegas as opposed to in Ely.
Yes, and thank you for that. We did have an announcement for a job posting, and no one in Ely would apply. So we could only get applicants from Las Vegas.
Maybe we could partner with school district to see if they have any part-timers that need a full-time position and could cover. I don't know, maybe there might be just some other public facing, be it, extension at the cooperative extension office or something, that where maybe we could round something off. We'd have to train them. But even if it's 3 days a week, you know what I mean? So something along those lines, maybe we might be able to help with.
And I appreciate that. We are not allowed to, well, the state HR screens our applicants and they decide who is qualified or not, which I really don't like, quite frankly.
I agree.
And so I think we had more applicants, but they would not forward those resumes to us.
All right, so that's an admin thing that Peter, maybe you guys can help with to say, hey, listen, cut this crap. I mean, I go back to 1990 and I used to hear that as vice chair of Ways and Means, so if we're still having that kind of blockage, a barrier, we need to deal with that.
I would agree.
Yeah, this is Peter Handy. I agree. And I know there are ways around some of those screening tools that HR uses. It might be worth my time to have a call with them anyways. We have I recently submitted all our information to try and get our ASO position posted and fulfilled. And, I got an email back saying I filled out the wrong form. My form was too old to send a new form, which felt very much like how other people might feel about how our office works. So it might be worth having a call or escalating some of the situations we're having, especially because the need to hire is so urgent at the NSPD and here, to find out how we can best expedite the process in a way that actually meets the needs that we have.
Okay.
And I think, Andrew, you might have an additional position for a legal secretary in Humboldt County right now, and maybe that's something we can look at filling like locally in Ely for the time being, so that somebody's in the office. Since I think there's somebody already in Humboldt County, just so that the office can be live and the local folks that somebody interact with. Because clients sometimes will just walk to the door and say, I want to talk to somebody, and it's important we have someone there for them to talk to.
Yep, and there is someone we want to hire, but they would have to work remotely. And with the governor's position on remote work, I'm still working on that to finesse that.
Okay. Okay, great suggestions. Thank you. I think we'll continue to triage. Anything else, Mr. Coates? Chris?
No, unless there are any other questions.
All right. Then let's look for I don't think we already did this. An acceptance on the update from the Nevada State Public Defender for, since this is an action item.
I would move to accept the report.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Mendiola seconds.
Thank you, Dave. Mr. Mendiola, nice to hear your voice. Any other further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposition?
Aye.
Great. Then let's move on to item number 8, which is a Nye County status report and analysis. Several portions to this, so I will turn it over to Mr. Handy.
Yes, welcome to everyone's favorite part of every agenda, where we do a deep dive into a county that we've talked about considerably before. So I guess I'll start at the beginning, right? The chief compliance issue we have right now with Nye County is a lack of attorneys to meet the workload indicated requirement. I think that there are a lot of other compliance issues in Nye County, and they stem from that as kind of the root cause. We've had several conversations about attorneys reporting, not matching what's actually happening on the ground, cases being covered by stand-in counsel or other attorneys. I think these tend to be the kinds of things we see when attorneys have too many cases, not enough time to work their cases well, and need to be in multiple places at once. And these are things I think that can be remedied if there are enough attorneys in Nye County. So the Nevada National Center for State Courts study identified that Nye County needs 12 attorneys, and that was based on caseload data from several years ago. We did identify in some of the spreadsheets that were posted the current caseload of several of the attorneys. We've highlighted all of the contractors in yellow. A few of those are extremely high. You can just note by the numbers of cases that, Attorney Shelton, Attorney Shahani, Attorney Gent have hundreds of cases. These aren't sustainable numbers. In some cases, they amount to over 10,000 workload hours of open cases. And there's a few reasons those numbers look so high. The predominant reason is that they're not being closed in legal server. Mr. Sheik's worked for over a year now with several of these attorneys, and several of these attorneys have closed a significant number of cases in legal server, so we can get better idea of the number of cases they're actually carrying. Now, the National Center for State Courts study doesn't identify a carrying weight that's excessive, but I think it's something we have to look at to see how many cases they're still carrying over amount of time. We've also run numbers for the number of cases that have been assigned to each attorney in the last calendar year, so beginning January 1 of this year. And you'll notice that those numbers, we've tried to maintain at or below that 1,392 hours for the caseload study. There are some cases where they're higher because attorneys are receiving cases from clients that they've represented in the past. So in an effort to have attorneys paired with clients that they've already done work with before, they've already developed a rapport relationship with, they're receiving some of those cases. And in some cases, some of those attorneys are receiving a lot more of those clients in subsequent cases. Beginning in July of this year, the department unilaterally started effectively not assigning new cases to contractors in Nye County, but instead assigning those to conflict attorneys in order to reduce the workloads of the contracted counsel. As of today, there are 8 attorney contractors in Nye County. One of them just became a contractor very recently. As we kind of discussed earlier, a number of the contractors that had begun their contracts in the prior fiscal year or started their contracts in the middle of the fiscal year around February of this year either didn't renew or were not renewed for their contracts into this biennium. The newer contracts were improvements over the old ones. Nye County went from $175,000 a year to $200,000 a year. These contracts, they extended the term to have them be 2-year contracts instead of 1-year contract, providing some certainty for both the county and for the attorneys who are taking these contracts. We think those are overall improvements to what they're doing in the county. The problem is that they're still not at 12 attorneys, which is where they need to be for Davis compliance and really where they need to be, I think, to effectively represent their clients in Nye County. We've also done some efforts at reducing attorney caseloads and kind of addressing some of the systemic impediments. So we've worked with the attorneys to create tracks so that some attorneys are in kind of track A and track B. Two of the justice courts are run at the same time. So it used to be the case that attorneys would be running back and forth during calendars to make sure that they're representing their client's case when it gets called in front of one judge. We're trying to minimize that so that you don't have a lot of standing counsel covering in one courtroom while attorneys are in another, and trying to address the necessary kind of disparity and workload that comes with, I've met with my clients and I'm working in courtroom A, and then I have to meet with my clients and work in courtroom B all at the same time. It creates a larger burden than the attorneys need to have to work their case as well. So we're trying to make those efforts. We have actually identified somebody to work as a council administrator in Nye County. We're in the contracting process right now. It would begin probably sometime in early January. It's Mr. Langford, if you know him, a very experienced defense attorney in Las Vegas. And he would be taking on that kind of council administration role. So working not only to ensure that the caseloads are distributed among the contractors, but also acting as a mentor since several of the contractors aren't fully qualified to Cat A, to try and give them something to lean on as a resource to help ensure that their clients are getting effective representation and that they feel there's a place where they can go to, ask what they might feel is a stupid question or, ask about a complicated situation in a place that's going to be confidential for them, to do that. And in a way that's not kind of, I don't want to say making them look bad, but like it's a place where they can grow comfortably instead of, it might be difficult to go to Mr. Sheik, who's the oversight attorney who's reporting to the department about questions they might have in a certain case or a certain situation or a certain standard might apply. They might feel more comfortable going to Mr. Langford. So these are all the kind of things we've worked towards. I think the most recent thing that Nye County has done is engage in another round of solicitation for contractors. It's included in the materials that we've uploaded. That solicitation's ongoing. It's anticipated that they'll be brought before the board meeting. I think January 6th is the date in the solicitation. We've reached out to Lorena in her capacity representing the county about forming the committee for recommending contractors to the Board of County Commissioners as provided for in their plan. She seemed to take that favorably, which is great. We're glad to see that they're moving in the direction of compliance with the plan. I think if it comes out that they hire enough contractors to meet the workload requirement, then we're going to be able to see kind of what the other compliance needs are at that point. If for some reason, though, the county doesn't hire enough contractors from this round of solicitation, I don't know what else we can do as a department other than enter into a corrective action plan with Nye County to achieve compliance before the end of August. These are very short timeframes. Government, as you all know, moves fairly slowly. And while the counties can move more nimbly than we can, I don't know that we'd be in a position to, if at the end of January, maybe they're soliciting again, maybe that comes up in April, maybe it comes up in June. But we've done this the last several years and we're still not at 12. And I don't want to be in a position where we're in August having to explain to the monitor, to plaintiff's counsel, to the governor's office, why we're not in compliance when we have the opportunity, I think, to cause that to happen. There's certainly, as I described earlier on this call, some political issues with the county and their perceptions perhaps of public defense. But I think that's something that we have to set aside because ultimately we need to have effective representation for the clients, for our public defenders. And the county needs to either kind of be a partner or be the test case for how corrective action is going to work in Nevada. I'm happy to answer any questions about Nye County. I'm also happy to hear any input or comments you might have about kind of next steps for the agency and for Nye County.
It looks like Mr. Sheik has his hand raised.
Yes, I do. If I could just follow up on Peter's comments on a number of things. First of all, Joni, I think, had asked a question concerning whether or not the DA's office could supply information on the number of open cases they show. I made that inquiry and they cannot supply that number. They don't know how many open cases they have. They don't have a process where the guy gets sentenced to go to prison and they put it in a closed stack. They just have cases and they can't say how many open cases they have. So there's nothing for us to compare against. Second of all,
Thank you.
with regard to, I think Ms. Jaffe had a question concerning, legal assistance for the attorneys. All of the Nye County attorneys are comfortable with coming to me with questions concerning legal issues, concerning motions, concerning, what should I do with this particular client. Um, it is a difficult situation when I'm reporting to DIDS as to performance. And I think having on board the appointed council program coordinator will alleviate a lot of the problems that we have in Nye County right now. And so I'm looking forward to that being done. And Mr. Langford certainly could fill a big role in doing so. With respect to the new recruitment for attorneys, there was discussion earlier concerning the selection of the attorneys at the May agenda. The Nye County plan actually has a provision for how attorneys are supposed to be selected, and it calls for creation of a 5-member committee to make recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners. That has not been followed in the past. And I'm certainly urging that we follow it now. And I think there's been communication between Peter and Lorena about setting up such a committee. But that committee is to consist of 5 members with no interest in the outcome of the selection, have no legal or financial relationship with any of the attorneys, is not directly related to the judiciary or any prosecution function, and have an interest in the variety of cases that are represented. In the past, it is my opinion that the district attorney has voiced his opinion as to who should be selected for contracts. I don't think that's appropriate. When we had the hearings that led to ADK 411, that was one of the first things we removed was involvement of the judiciary in selection of the defense counsel and involvement of the prosecution in selection of defense counsel. And I think setting up this board to make a recommendation to the county commission will alleviate a lot of the problems we've had in the past. With regard to the number of cases, there are 3 attorneys that still need to work on removing closed cases that are showing 488 cases, 417 cases, and 206 cases. Those numbers are not correct. The numbers are correct for 5 out of the 8 attorneys. And once we get those numbers corrected in legal server, I think we'll be better able to say, do we actually need 12 attorneys or can we get by with 10? I'm certainly looking forward to adding at least 2 at this next hiring process, and I think that will help greatly. And that's all I have on those issues that Peter talked about.
Great. Thank you so much. Are there other questions?
This is Chris.
Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you. We're hearing the issue of just closing the cases, so at least we know what numbers are numbers. Peter, is there a way to do a temp hiring where we can send them into an office and have them sit with the attorney and they literally gather the data and close the cases with them, and we pay for them and we rotate them around to the different counties just to get the numbers straight? And then that person could be properly trained so that you got that as a resource in the future. When, garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't have the numbers right, it's hard for us to even argue on the workload study component part of it. Is there anything like that, somebody you fly in and they sit there with them and they clean up the list and they're gone, and let them start fresh as far as going forward?
Yeah, Peter Handy for the record. In the meantime, that's mostly been David Sheik who's been helping them out to try and do that. We don't have a position for that, right? I can't hire an employee until I create the position to kind of do that sort of thing. And that takes some time. I don't think it's impossible. It could probably be done by way of contract too, potentially. So yeah, I think that's a good
Or
idea.
maybe Washoe and Clark might have a staff person that they could loan you for the purposes of going in and doing legal service. We can take some of the money out of 3 million and compensate, but you get that off your plate, because I think once you kind of get that, then we start to focus on, is someone really dragging their feet? Are they ignoring whether or not they could hire somebody? That kind of part of it. I don't know, just a thought.
No, I think that's a good idea. So I guess kind of two things. One is the number that I'm more focused on isn't like that total number of open cases, knowing that they haven't all been closed. It's that second spreadsheet where it's just cases that have been open since the beginning of the year.
Right.
Yeah. And so like when I'm looking at the number of cases that we've assigned, and it's 826 cases total among the contractors and all other attorneys. And when I kind of go down to that second box and it's like 23,000 hours, I can divide that by 1,392.6 hours and get a number. It's not 12 attorneys, I'll admit, but we're also not done with the year. And these are just kind of numbers run earlier this week. So these numbers are kind of changing.
Uh-huh.
On the other side, right, is that there is no exception in the consent judgment for meeting the number of attorneys identified in the NCSC study, which is that 12.0 attorneys. So I certainly, I guess I don't want to focus too much on the need for closing cases as much as I wanted to identify that as a symptom of attorneys not having enough time to do the work that's needed.
Do it in the first place. So
Yes.
It's more a support personnel type person that's really needed for many of them.
And I think having the, the administrative coordinator will help assist with that, right? Since that will be the kind of point of contact for all these attorneys, they can provide that kind of support with legal server management, making sure their cases are closed, helping them with understanding what resources we have and don't have available, and helping them kind of identify where they can close more cases or making sure that the rotation is more fair. But I think once we get to the point where there are enough attorneys that we won't see these kinds of problems where cases aren't being closed. Like this is something that we've identified.
Out of the lack of attorney.
Right.
Okay, got it. Right. All right. Thank you.
Jared Hickman for the record. Is this, I guess starting, I've got a couple of questions. I want to start here. Is this plan that you're proposing with Mr. Langford as the appointed council administrator, this new round of solicitations, is this, are you bringing this to the board as a corrective action, or are you saying if the round of solicitations is not effective in January, you'll be seeking corrective action after that date?
So it's more of the latter. This is really to give the board an idea of what's happening with NIE vis-a-vis the case numbers, like where we're at, right? Because we mentioned for a couple of meetings now, NIE is the county that's on fire when it comes to not having effective representation or not having enough attorneys provide effective representation. And we've identified a lot of those issues. So right now I'm trying to kind of give you an idea of where the need is, what the current status of the county is, where it looks like the county is going and could go, and kind of steps that we're taking to get toward a point of being both effective representation and compliance under Davis. They go hand in hand. I don't think we can do one without the other. But so identifying things like hiring Mr. Langford as a council administrator, right? That's something the state has said it was going to pick up because Nye County wasn't doing that under their plan. So that's something we've been seeking to do for several months. We went through a couple rounds of working with different firms who might have wanted to take on the role and found somebody who's willing to do it. And so that's kind of how we're approaching it from our end. Like Mr. Sheik's been indispensable in helping NIE be, I think, a tolerable place for these contractors to keep working their contracts. And indispensable in kind of identifying for us where the issues are. Obviously, a lot of the issues in NIE are more structural than we can handle. We can't open and close jails at DIDS. We can't help with the courts having their session, determining when they're going to be in session or not, where attorneys need to appear. But certainly we can give attorneys the resources and the tools to better effectively represent their clients to deal with those situations, right? They might be able to obtain orders from the courts to produce their clients in a certain way or in certain times and places that might instruct the sheriff's office to do or not do certain things, right? And if they have enough support and enough time to follow through with that, with those kinds of things that they could be doing instead of trying to triage their cases, some of those structural issues might be degraded over time by the performance of defense attorneys.
My second question was, in this new round of solicitations, through your communications with the county or work down in the county, however that's shaken out, do you know, is the intent here to hire 4 more attorneys if there is enough interest, or is it to hire a lesser number? And then will the 432B cases also be a part of this contract, or will they be removed from that contract?
And Peter Handy, for the record, I can't speak to the intent of the county. In the past, it's been indicated that the county, under prior solicitations, may hire up to meeting that 12 attorneys, 12 contracts. So if that's still the county's intent, if they still intend to hire up to 12 contractors, I think that's great. But I don't know, it's not indicated in the solicitation how many contracts they are actually intending to allocate in this solicitation process. My understanding is that in the solicitation, 432B cases are still included in this contract. And so based on some of the research that was mentioned earlier, right, that's a significant amount of time is being allocated to those. If it's anywhere between 10 and 20%, if it's up to 20%, that's 1.6 or 2.4 attorneys worth of time that's being allocated to 432B cases. It's not being allocated to indigent defense cases. So that's a substantial amount of time that attorneys are dedicating to these. And the attorneys have been very responsive in the last several months about this, where we've asked them to include data that they're, open the number of cases they have in legal server, start including the amount of time they're spending. And I've indicated on a couple of sheets the case numbers in orange. Obviously, there's no workload allocation of time for these civil cases. But if we're thinking it's somewhere between, approximating 20%, that's a significant amount of workload that's being handled with 432B cases. That kind of renders that, if it's 12 attorneys under the workload study, assuming that they're not doing any of this work, it should be something like 14.4. That's a huge difference. We've encouraged all of the counties to separate the contracts for indigent defense and their needs for 432B or guardianship or other types of appointed counsel cases, so we can help head off this issue. And other counties have done that. So far, Nye County has not split those up. I've had conversations with the district attorney. He seemed interested in potentially separating those out. Of course, he's not in charge of what the Board of County Commissioners does. But certainly if he's amenable to that and making his recommendations, that will go a long way in ensuring we're getting toward compliance.
Sure.
I hope that answers your question. I know I went afield a bit.
Will you have an opportunity, do you know, in this next round of solicitations, will you or the appointed council administrator, if in place prior to that, have the opportunity to review and approve contracts before they're signed?
Typically, we see contracts at about the time they're signed, sometimes in between when they're approved and when they're signed. I'm sure Ms. Dellinger can get us a copy of the contracts that she'd be proposing before they go to the board for approval and signature. And I can certainly distribute those to the board and to the council administrator, to Mr. Sheik, when I get those.
And then my last question came on some of the information that and I'm probably mispronouncing this, is it Sayar?
Sayar.
Okay, sent this morning, but in the absence of clear information regarding the amount of time that the attorneys are spending in 432B matters, is there any concern that the state is somehow reimbursing for matters that are not within the definition of indigent defense services under 180?
And Peter Handy, for the record, yes, it's part of our typical review when we're reviewing county submitted financial statements for quarterly financial reports. When we allocate funds for meeting the maximum contribution amount, and then again for providing the amount we reimburse, we reduce that reporting by the amount of time spent in civil cases or non-indigent defense cases. Or if it's itemized reporting from the counties, items that aren't indigent defense in nature. So if it hasn't been reported to us in the past, then we may have over reimbursed Nye County among other counties, right? If they're equally not reporting this kind of work. Most counties, the attorneys seem to be doing a good job of reporting the civil time for 432B allocations. And so we seem to be appropriately reducing those. I think practically when the LCB audit comes back, that's probably going to be a point we're going to get a lot more information about and be able to restructure the system. But in Nye County specifically, yes, we know that there is 432B work being done. I think the amount that is being done based on some more recent reporting in the last 6 months is very concerning. I certainly didn't know it could be that high of the amount of time they're spending. And I don't think the amount that we're reducing, that we've reduced in the past for non-indigent defense time mirrors the actual time being spent. So there's certainly some ongoing concerns about that.
And will one of the primary, I guess, tasks of the appointed council administrator when hired be dealing with this 432B issue to, so I guess, sort of second, pull out those numbers to make sure we're not reimbursing for unallowable expenses?
So that's principally something we're doing in-house. It probably won't be deferred to that person because that person, I think, is going to be instrumental in working with the attorneys, right, to make sure that they're including that in the reporting. But the dollar value we typically use is kind of an allocation basis. So we take the total number of hours worked by an attorney and we apply that to the $200,000 in their contract. And if 20% of the time is non-indigent defense work, we reduce the $200,000 by 20% for maximum contribution allocation reimbursement.
Thank you,
And Peter,
Yes.
I don't think you can confirm this with Lorena, but I don't think Nye County is submitting those hours for reimbursement.
Real quick,
So
I've
Peter-
got two hands up that I don't want to. So let's go ahead and answer that, and then we'll go to Mr. Sheik and then Miss Dellinger.
Sure. Peter,
Thank you.
handy briefly. First, we do, because we track the numbers on our end, we use Legal Server as kind of the default for identifying where those civil hours are. So if a county doesn't report it in their typical financial reporting or offset it themselves, we'll offset it on our end. So I know we have offset amounts in the past for Nye County among many of the counties, even if they haven't separated those hours out. In part because we too have a independent separate obligation to make sure we're not reimbursing counties for things we're not supposed to. So whether it's being reported or not, we're taking some action on our end with the information we have. That said, of course, the more detailed reporting we get, the better job we can do. And I'll say, I guess, Nye County's reporting isn't as detailed as many of the other counties we deal with.
Thank you. Mr. Sheik?
Yes, I can give you the figures that my survey of the attorneys showed for the amount of time they're spending on the 432B cases at this point in time. And this is an average over the last 3 months. 6 of the attorneys reported estimates for me, and it came out to about 22 hours a month per attorney spent on 432B cases, which calculates a little bit less than 20% of their full-time allocation of 1392 hours. If we took that figure and multiplied it out, it turns out to be an extra 2,112 hours spent for the 432B cases, which is 1.5 full-time attorney positions. So if we were going to require the attorneys to continue to cover 432B cases, we would need 13.5 attorneys to cover the caseload for criminal cases and including the 432B cases. There are alternatives to doing this. There was a meeting held with Judge Lane who hears these cases to discuss possible ways to remedy the caseload on the attorneys. We're looking at reducing possibly the number of cases where attorneys are appointed on 432B cases. It is a discretionary appointment. It's not mandatory. It's mandatory in the statute for juveniles that they're taken into custody, but not for parents. And there are some cases where we don't need to appoint attorneys on these cases. There are certainly instances where attorneys need to be appointed, and I'm not advocating against appointing attorneys. I'm just saying perhaps not in every case. In the past, there hasn't been the typical indigency discussion held with the with a parent before counsel is appointed. And so we're looking at making sure we're only appointing counsel for those people that are actually indigent in 432B cases. In criminal cases, we always make that canvas, and they weren't doing it in the 432B hearings. And so that's the results of the inquiries I'd made concerning this issue.
Thank you. Ms. Dellinger, I see your
Thank
hand.
you, Madam Chair. I can answer Mr. Hickman's questions. Nye County, the priority is to fulfill all 12 contracts. So my hope is to award 4 contracts on January 6th. The contracts do include the 432B cases, but once we're in compliance, or at least with the total of contracts, we are moving towards removing that from the contracts and awarding separate contracts for those. My report does reduce the amount, so I don't report that for 432B. And I did have a communication, and I apologize, I can't remember her name, from Peter's office asking why I wasn't reporting the full quarterly amount for our public defender contracts. And that was the reason, is because I don't report for 432B. And I think there was one other comment. I'm more than happy to provide Peter with our draft contracts that will eventually be signed in January. Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Peter Haney, for the record, briefly, I wonder, Lorena, if that might have been one of the LCB auditors that reached out to you for that information and not someone in our staff, because I don't recall.
They did, but it's been a while. It was an email that I could pull up, but yes, the LCB also requested that information.
Okay.
I guess I'll just note that that's great news that the county's looking towards hiring 4 more contractors to get to that 12 attorneys, especially if they're looking to in the future removing the 432B cases. That's exactly what we're all looking for, I think.
Great. All right. Further discussion on item number 8? Questions? Comments? Sorry, I had to step out for just a couple minutes. Did we get through all of the items, Mr. Handy?
Yes, I think the last thing's kind of, where would the board, I think, I'd really like the board's input on kind of where we take this from here. The next meeting of the board isn't until February, which is over a month after this contract determination is made. It would be really helpful for me to get an idea of where you think we should be going in the interim, kind of depending on where that contracting lands.
Madam Chair, this is Chris. If I could comment on that, I do think you mentioned maybe us moving to a monthly, at least as for a while, as we might need it. I think that makes good sense. It'll cut down the length of what we have. We have the monitor issue coming up, so at least our eyes can be on it. I think we can figure out a way to make that work.
This is Jared. With your I guess your plan as you laid it out. I guess looking at corrective action if the requisite amount of attorneys or hours are not filled after the January board meeting, and then the next board meeting, the next Board of Indigent Defense meeting is not until February. Do you need a vote of this board to provide you with authority to enter into a corrective action plan if that's not done on the 6th? Is that the type of direction you're looking for?
That would be the type of direction I'm looking for, yes.
Other board members want to weigh in on the interim, what to do in advance of the February meeting? Is there interest in having a January meeting to continue this discussion around this particular item?
Yes.
Joni?
Madam Chair, yes.
Okay, so one of the points of direction would be looking for a date in January so we could continue and have this item presented in front of this board.
Hey, may I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead, Allison.
I want to compliment the DID staff and Peter for getting so much done between the last meeting and this one. I think we were all pretty freaked out last time, and now it just seems like the staff has been moving in a good direction, and we're clearly communicating with them what we would like to see. So I really think a January meeting would be necessary, and monthly after that, and maybe we can just have like hour and a half meetings so we can get done what we need to be done before our final monitor report. So thank you.
Certainly. Okay, so it sounds like frequency is one of the corrective action items, just so we can keep this in front of us. Would anyone like to take a stab at a motion for this item, which I believe could include a recommendation to have a January meeting at the discretion of the director, at a date to be determined by the director?
Peter, Andy, for the record, all the meetings going to be set by the chair, so you have the
Oh,
discretion.
so you want me to do it? All right. So
No, I can certainly have our staff send out a survey though to find out when y'all will be available in January, so that we can have a fully attended meeting as best we can at least.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if you don't mind, one more question for the department. I guess in the absence, even with the meeting in January, do you need authority to begin the corrective action process? Say for instance, we can't land on a date in January, or it's well after the 6th. Do you need the authority from the board to begin the corrective action process? Is that something you need from us today?
Peter Hayner, for the record, no, it's not something that's required under the statute. The director and one of the deputies can recommend entry into corrective action process without board approval. Like I said, it really was to get direction from the board, given the timeline we're looking at, given the kind of uncertainty, and the deep interest in Nye County over the last several months. Okay.
Okay. I'm getting general head nodding from our DAG, so that's a good sign. And a thumbs up. All right.
Motion, Madam Chair, to accept the report with the direction that staff do a doodle poll or something along those lines to find out about people's opportunity. You can always cancel something if you at least get it out, especially as busy as most of you are. So I would make that as a motion if that's acceptable.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that motion. Do I hear a second?
I would second.
Yep.
Thank you, Allison. All right. We've got a motion on the floor and a second. Further discussion? I'm not seeing any, so all board members in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any anyone opposed? Sorry, I'm trying to monitor online as well. Who else is? All right, I don't see any there. So, Joni, did you have a question or a comment? No. Just a little feedback. All right.
Yeah, I was switching to another phone because my handset was going dead.
Oh, sorry. Yes, we're going on 2.5 hours. So thank you. Well, you've got enough direction, Mr. Handy, on number 8, I think, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody in January. Let's move on to item number 9, which is the department and board updates. And I will turn that over to you as well, Mr. Handy.
Thank you, and I will be brief since we've already touched a lot of these things just because of the robust discussions before. So I'll start with the technical assistance request. We're having a follow-up meeting with the NAPD. We're hoping to get that moving as quickly as possible. We're going to have the funds available, so that won't be an issue or an impediment. We won't have to go back to IFC to ask for additional funding this time, so it should be fantastic. They've already been so receptive, and they seem to already know where we're trying to go with the program. They already know a lot about the Nevada program through their various experiences, so I think it'll be an easy to get them kind of integrated to learn the system as it is and kind of get an idea of where the best practices are and where we're going to go with that in the future. Subsection B, the LCD programmatic audit. We were told we might be getting a draft of that sometime soon. We haven't seen that yet. As soon as we get the The report that requires us to respond, we'll be sending it out to the board members. So I want to make the board aware that that may be coming out in the next couple of months. And if you get an email that talks about the
Don't think we can't send it to the board. It's confidential.
oh, after the responses though?
After the,
No,
yeah,
that's
it
what-
has to be after the meeting. So, sorry.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I could be totally wrong.
So we met with LCB and we'd advocated for the board to have some involvement
That's right.
in the process, and they, clarified that it doesn't become public until the actual public meeting. We are allowed to see it confidentially and draft a response that becomes part of that report, but certainly as soon as it's off of embargo, we would absolutely share it with the board and post it online. They had some questions about the feasibility of some recommendations they were thinking about, and they've been alternating between looking at sort of that snapshot of time that the audit is, and then also, I think, really kindly looking at all the things we're trying to do.
Thanks. At some point, I'll get this right. Subsection C, numbers of claims received. I actually had to upload twice because I uploaded stuff with backup. The kind of numbers that of bills, the claims that the department's been processing over the last couple of years. As I mentioned earlier, right, and part of the monitor's report, like we've talked a lot about billing, and billing isn't the mission of this department. The mission of the department is to ensure that clients are getting effective representation to support indigent defense attorneys across the state, but especially in Nevada and rural areas. And I want our staff to be able to focus on that mission rather than doing a lot of billing. And I want our attorneys to focus on that mission rather than doing a lot of billing. So I just kind of wanted to indicate, as I mentioned earlier, we're getting $3 million. I think we might need more staff so that we can better affect our billing processes without getting in the way of achieving what we're trying to do. And so one of the things that I noticed was, I get a stack of bills like this probably once a week. And here's my prop for this. This is one attorney's bills for 1 month. And we have dozens of attorneys who send claims to our office. And this is just for conflict counsel cases. This doesn't include post-conviction cases that we pay bills for, prison cases that we process bills for. In 2024, we processed almost 3,000 bills. In 2025 alone, as of November 21st, when this report was run, we processed over 3,700 bills. We'll probably get close to 4,000 before the end of the year. I think when there are a number of reasons for that. Part of that is, a lot more conflict counsel going to take cases. We've been shuffling more cases in Nye County off the rotation of contractors to conflict counsel, results in more bills for us having to review. I think that's necessary. But what I think the identifying thing here is that there's 50% nearly more work this year over last just to process bills, and we don't have 50% more billing staff. So right now we're recruiting for an AA2. We expect to have that position filled by the end of the month. That should take some of the load off of our billing staff. We're also starting the solicitation process for the ASO1 position, like I mentioned earlier. That will provide some support, direction, oversight for the billing staff, potentially taking some of the load off of the deputy directors and myself who are reviewing a lot of these bills by kind of processing more rapidly the kind of, these are easy, kind of no-brainer, they just need to be signed and returned bills. So we can hopefully get those back to the attorneys faster, keep them off of our desks, and allow our office to, again, get more focused on the providing services to the attorneys. And then being able to better communicate how to get their billing done more quickly. I think I'll run this kind of again after we fill that ASO position to see how that's working and whether we still need more staff to kind of supplement the need. I have a strong feeling that we will. We have incredible staff here. If you haven't met them, please come visit. They're fantastic people. They work very hard. In many cases, they're more efficient than I think a lot of other people in their positions would be. And so I think we're doing them some kind of a disservice when we're having them take on this extra, 50% of billing, when they really could be doing other things that might be more beneficial for the clients, more beneficial for them to work in the department, and more beneficial overall for the clients at some point. So kind of keep an eye on this space, because I'll probably be mentioning that more times as we keep going forward, as to what the department's needs are, because sometimes when we're looking at other agencies or other counties, we sometimes neglect to look introspectively as to what can help out here. And I think that's one of the things that we need to keep developing is internal talent to make sure that we have all the internal resources to fulfill our mission. So with that, I'll move on to 9D and kind of talk about the I think, we put a lot of focus on the public defender training and CLE training. We do a lot of other training kind of in-house, and we're going to try pushing more of that out. We held a legal server and timekeeping training last month after the last meeting, invited NSPD members, and we're going to refine that training so that we have a more robust kind of centralized, not interact is not the right word, but introductory material so that instead of just saying, okay, welcome to listen to attorney, here's a legal server account, good luck. There is a process for them to learn the system, a process, resource that's static and available to them if they need to go and access it again. Or if they need more tailored meeting, Stanley of the department holds meetings or holds trainings once a month. And those are tailored to whatever attorneys want that training to be for legal server. We're going to be putting on training regarding billings and claims, really doing more outreach to attorneys to let them know what we can make available to them, how to make the processes easier for them. And, like I mentioned earlier, getting that attorney feedback is invaluable to us doing our job well. And so every time we have that kind of touch point with attorneys, like it's a training opportunity for us as well to know what we can do better, how to make the processes better, how to make them more simple. So we're hoping to increase those in the future. Third, I might pitch to Brenda. We attended and presented at the Rural Judges Conference. As far as I'm aware, this is the first of an annual conference for just rural judges put on by the Administrative Office of the Courts. It was held this year in Tonopah, and I was intending to give a presentation, but it ended up being the first day of special session. So Brenda took that on her own and drove down to Tonopah and gave a presentation with Stephen Rye, a DA in Lyon County, and Jacob Summer, the public defender in Churchill County. And she can probably give you a better idea of how it went than I could, since she went and I didn't.
Thank you, Peter. This is Brenda Roberts. I think the conference went well. We know that some of the rural judges are not the biggest supporter of DID, so I went in prepared, I think, for some of the questions, and they asked really good questions. It was a very positive conference. People have constructive comments and questions, wondering why DIDS was or wasn't doing things. And part of the program that Peter put together that I presented was on things that are within DIDS purview and things that aren't. And so things we talked about were, attorney ethics and competency. That's the state bar. DIDS do they have minimal experience, and the things we can do if there are concerns, such as not appointing attorneys to new cases, but existing cases, that's really for the judges to handle. And so that was something I think a lot of folks found interesting and helpful. And just talked to a couple different judges about issues they were facing, talked to Judge Walker about some things going on in Nye County that we've heard about already today. So I think it ended on a positive note. And I had some folks went to me afterwards and asking again, questions specific to their court, and nothing earth shattering, but just sort of building that rapport with some of our local rural judges, I think was really valuable.
I think I'm happy to take any questions now on item 9 that I've rapidly moved my way through, since I know I've used a lot of your valuable time already.
Peter, may I just add that the Rural Judges Conference, I went to the presentation that DIDS participated in, and she did a really great job.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you. A lot of work. You covered in a short amount of time. Thank you. Keep up the good work. Any other board member comments? All right. Shall we move on to item number 10, which is workload compliance? Peter, we will punt that one back to you, Mr. Director.
Sure, and I'll keep this one simple, Peter Handy, for the record. I'll start with the list that we have. Churchill County, it looks like they've added 2 new attorneys to the public defender's office. That brings them to a total of 4 attorneys in the public defender's office, 1 alternate public defender in the alternate public defender's office. They have 1 contract, so 6 attorneys out of the 7.4 needed under the NCSC study. A huge increase from, I think, just a year ago when there was only 1 public defender, 1 alternate public defender, and 1 contract. So kudos to Jacob Summer for making that happen. I think I've mentioned multiple times on these meetings, Fallon seems like it's a great place to work, actually. So I'm surprised we're not seeing more people go out there. Everyone's really friendly. The judges seem to have their stuff together, very amenable to work with. The DA's office seems to be reasonable to work with, which is not typically the case in a lot of these places. So I think it's just well done by Jacob Summer and the team. The county seems to be very receptive to adding these positions. I think we're only going to see good things moving forward from Churchill County. Douglas County, I haven't confirmed. I remember the last meeting, Mr. Filter, their Indigent Defense Services director within the county, indicated they might have a new contractor beginning that would bring them up to 6 full-time contractors. Plus, they had the 12 part-time contracts they're putting through a rotation. I don't know if he's still on the call and wants
He's
to
on.
comment.
Yep.
I am.
Brian's here. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you. Brian Filter, Director of the Douglas County Department of Indigent Defense, for the record. Yeah, Peter's right. We do have a sixth attorney that's going to be coming online on January 1st. His name is Jason Gunnell. He's coming up from Nye County. And so that's a lock now. There's hope before now. It's signed contract, and he's got a place here and all that. So that'll start. The other thing, Mr. Lopez commented on the current that we have 5, but that Justin Clauser is not fully qualified, and that is true. But that, with any luck, is going to be rectified. He's got a jury trial coming up about a week, I think, that I think will get him to where he can be qualified for the high B's and A's. So we will have 6 fully qualified attorneys at that point. So we're making positive moves and hopefully getting there.
Thank you, Mr. Filter. Sorry to interrupt, Peter. I just didn't know if you could see that he was on.
Yeah, no, it's great. I could not. So thank you for interrupting me.
I got you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so again, that's great news. Douglas County moving with an entirely new model. I still want to mention, like with this model where Brian's kind of running the show of the contractors in the county. Really interested to see if this is something that might be implementable elsewhere. This might be somewhere where like Nye County could go, where there is somebody overseeing all the contracts rather than it being, kind of ad hoc contractors that might move in and out of the system. So potentially a model to keep an eye on. It might be something that maybe Mr. Filter writes a white paper about in the future, and we can all get a better understanding of what's happening on the ground there. Eureka County was already mentioned. Jane Everhardy's picking up the contract that Kelly Brown's leaving at the end of this year. Well, shoot, in less than 30 days now. It's a contract for 1/3 of an attorney. As was mentioned, we're monitoring her caseload in White Pine County. Luckily, with the number of attorneys that are now in the NSPD operating for White Pine County, it shouldn't have a major impact. If anything, she shouldn't need to take on as many cases. So hopefully that will be manageable. I think that will be manageable for her in the future. It also means Eureka County is covered for compliance, which is excellent. Lyon County, we mentioned, I think it's probably worth mentioning in more detail, perhaps at a future board meeting. I mentioned kind of in detail our kind of next steps with Cale Brock's office and with the county kind of addressing the issues we see on both sides of that. Certainly there's a lot of concern on our end, as the monitor also mentioned, about how many attorneys are actually covering the workload, who they're covering, how it's getting covered, are the clients aware? So I think it's a couple of ongoing discussions, but it's something I think we need to have a better idea of, and something that we can probably spend a lot more time discussing as a board or with the board, so that you all have a better idea of what's happening as well. Mineral County, they lost a second tier contractor or first tier contractor. My understanding is they've retained a new contractor. Kirsty Pickering is going to be the second contract in the county. So it'll be back to 2 contractors. They have a workload requirement of 2.1 attorneys. So they're in a good position. And then Nye County, we spend a lot of time. I'm not going to hash over the numbers again. If there are any questions about item number 10 and the compliance update, I'm happy to answer them.
Board members, whipped through the workload compliance update. Anybody have questions on any of the counties listed? Comments? A motion to accept, perhaps.
So move.
Thank you, Ms. Giuliani. Do I have a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Easley. All right, we have a motion and a second on the workload compliance update. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Aye. All right, it sounds like we're moving on to the training and pipeline update, item number 11. This is for discussion only. Mr. Handy.
And if I could punt this one to Deputy Director Roberts, I would love to be able to do that.
Hi, Brenda Roberts. So item A is our pipeline and LASSO. In addition to Boyd Career Services having our information, we are on the McGeorge Job Board for the LASSO program. We already have a letter of interest for a December graduate who wants to work in Indigent Defense in Nevada. So I forwarded his information to the PD's offices in our rural counties. Speaking of that, is you may know Rule 49.5, SCR 49.5 limits law school graduates who haven't yet passed the bar to only working with public defender offices. There has been some a rule proposed or a change worked on to expand that. And the way we did 49.1 last year to allow private contracted firms to also bring on new law school graduates who are awaiting their bar results. So I don't know where that is yet. We'll update you hopefully in January if we have information there. And we are also planning on attending in person the Northwest Public Career Service Fair, Public Service Career Fair. And that draws from law schools in Washington, Oregon, some in California, Idaho, Montana, and Arizona. So it gives us a big, broad selection to choose from. So hopefully we'll be able to go and pitch our LASSO program there, and also get on with some alum who may be looking for a change. Going on to the annual conference. The annual conference is still tentatively scheduled for March 18th to the 20th at Embassy Suites in Las Vegas, the Embassy Suites on Paradise. I say tentative only because we just need NPHF, we've contracted with, to finalize their portion of it, but the contract with them is finalized with the state. So this is pretty much a go. The focus will be on technology in the law. A couple changes we're introducing this year. We're having breakout sessions for skills practice. And we're also going to be able to have some of the sessions recorded. It can be hard for some of our rural practitioners, even though we pay their transportation, for them to get to either Las Vegas or Reno. And then also for the folks that are paid, hourly conflict counsel, the hourly contractors, they lose out on, they don't have salary, they're not getting paid for that. So this will allow them to still get the information they need, even if they're not able to come in person. And hopefully save the dates will be coming out in the next week or so. On our virtual training, I think I was able to forward, Jared reminded me I had not forwarded to you, and so I did the training next week on Batson. It's a Batson ethics combination put on by David Westbrook out of the Clark County PD's office. And he's always a great presenter, so I'm looking forward to that. And then we have the substance abuse CLE on the 18th, put on by a panel, which includes Christine Kazumka and Justice Sherry. I am still working with the Ethics Commission on trying to get another training this year. The only time they can do is December 22nd, which isn't ideal. But I also haven't heard back from them once I confirm that date. So this training would directly benefit our institutional providers because it will talk about their ethics obligations as public employees, but it will also, I think, help our contractors and conflict counsel be able to understand some of the limitations that the adversaries should be held to as well, the DAs, law enforcement. So the situation I think that came up where we had a deputy DA married to a law enforcement officer testifying at trial, and there are some ethical implications in that. The defense counsel may not have been aware of that. This training will kind of help them be aware of these things to look out for, because we also know we have another county where a justice of the peace is a relative of a law enforcement officer in that county. So they can get the law enforcement portion of it to this training, hopefully. And then looking to next year, sort of a combination of formal and informal training. We will be having an ethics training by Professor Rappaport around billing, because we know that that's a concern. A lot of our attorneys, or especially our conflict counsel, have never had to bill before, and they're really struggling with that. We are going to look at competency training, training on managing experts. Jane Eberhardy has agreed to do a training on opposing juvenile certifications to be tried as adults. She's had some good luck with that. We've had a lot of questions about that recently on the NACJ listserv, so she's agreed to do that. I'm not sure yet whether it's going to be a CLE or more of a lunch and learn kind of a thing, but she has agreed to do that for us for next year. And then finally, item D, our externs from Boyd. We just learned today that Samson Whetstone, our extern from the summer, now has an MBA mentor that professor to supervise the MPA portion of his program. And he's the one that we talked to about helping us convert the monthly or the oversight reports into actual usable data versus a series of anecdotes. So we'll hope to get some traction now on that, now that he has a supervising professor. And he's asked us to schedule a meeting, he just told us that today. So that's good news.
Great. Ms. Jaffe, do you have a question?
No, I'm good. Sorry.
Oh, okay. No, you're good. I just saw your box light up, so
sorry about that.
You're okay. I have control over the mute buttons. I don't want to mute people because I know that we have questions and lots of good input. So thank you, Brenda. Great update on training and what's in the pipeline. Do we have any board comments or questions?
Keep up the good work.
Hear, hear. All right. I know we're getting a little late here in the day, so lots of good stuff. Again, reiterating the appreciation for staff and all that has been accomplished since last meeting, which left me a little forlorn and wanting to call the staff and do some damage control. But let's move on to item number 12, which is that was just for discussion. So item number 12 is our upcoming meetings. I know there was discussion about having something in January to both look at making these meetings a little less cumbersome and keeping everything moving as we approach the end of August deadline. So it sounds like we already have direction on looking for something in January. Brenda, did you want to take this one? I have you listed as the one that was going to walk us through this. I can certainly do it. It's up to you.
I can do it. I had myself listed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, go for it, Peter.
So I'll send out a poll for January. The next meeting we talked about was February 5th. If you could respond, I think we've already sent out invites to kind of reserve the time. If for some reason you know already you can't make it and we're going to be close to catching a quorum, please let us know so that we can send out a new poll for different dates. March 18th is indicated here as proposed. That is the date of our conference. Since we have a breakout room available, it'd be great to see you all. We have the travel funding to get you there in Las Vegas. It'd be a great opportunity for you to see what these trainings look like, what we kind of, mean when we say we have an annual conference. So you can get a better idea of what's going on. We've received good reviews and we'd like you to see us get good reviews in the future. And it might be a good opportunity for a lot of you to network with the attorneys that we're working with. I know, we're kind of siloed in a lot of cases, and this is always an opportunity for us to get to know a lot of the attorneys that we work with, in a more personal setting. And it might be a good opportunity for board members to do the same. And also we can conduct some business at a time where, we're already doing that since we're going to be there on those days. And again, it's just a very convenient time and location. Of course, I'm sure we can work out a virtual component so that we can ensure everyone can attend. But we'd like to see all of you in Vegas.
Yeah.
Baby.
Do anyone have any issue with that date? I certainly have it blacked out on my calendar to be there.
March 18th, is that correct? Can you just clarify?
Yeah, and are we looking at afternoon too, Peter? So people that want to fly in the morning, or is it all day? Okay.
We believe it's going to be afternoon, probably for the meeting. The training is going on, I think beginning in the afternoon that day.
Yeah, so what worked, we tried this year in Marshall, it worked really well, was we start the meeting at Wednesday, or the training Wednesday at noon, all day Thursday, and then Friday morning to allow people to travel. So our meeting will probably be Wednesday morning.
Okay, so
we can do late
morning. Hopefully the meeting will be short since we're breaking out and having more meetings.
March 18th morning, you're saying then?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll want to fly down the night before or take the super, super early fun flight.
Which I don't recommend, having personally made that flight several times, flying the night before.
Yes, thank you. Good. Okay, any board member? Well, I guess let's go through the rest of these and then we can take them as a chunk with board member comments.
If you'd like, I can start polling now for potential dates in April and May if the board would like. That way we can get those on calendar and get invites out to you to schedule those off.
That would be fantastic. Yeah, good idea.
Go for it.
Okay.
Right.
So we have February 5th, right? Just to reconfirm, February 5th is our usual.
Yep.
We'll work on January and March 18th. That's where we're at. Okay, thank you.
And you said June 11th is?
June 11th is what we set, the beginning of this year, kind of tentatively. We try to do the in-person at least once a year. We go to a rural county and yeah, so hopefully we can do that again this year. If anybody's interested in hosting, please let us all know. And we can start making the arrangements on our end, of course.
Yep. I know Joni always likes.
Tonopah's always up for that. We are equally inconvenient for everyone.
Plenty of room at the med spot, right? All right. Excellent. Okay, with that, we've got our January, February, March, and June as listed on the agenda, and then the one that's added. Are there any board comments or questions on the upcoming?
Can you repeat January's? I apologize.
Oh, we don't have one yet, Chris, for
Okay.
January. That's the one we're going to be polling
what we're gonna-
folks for. Yep. That's the one we added during the course of this
Okay.
meeting.
Thank
Yep.
you.
February 5th, it looks like you did send out a whole placeholder, so I see that on my calendar, so do check yours. That one's at 1. And then March 18th one, if you want, if once we nail down the time, can we send a placeholder to the board on that one too? I'm seeing it head nodding from Peter. Great. That gives it, if it's not on my calendar, I don't show up. So the placeholders are so helpful. So thank you. And then June in person, we have plenty of time to chat about that at our now monthly meetings. So great. With that, does anyone have any comments or further questions on those items? I don't see anyone popping up for that, so it is for possible action. Do we have a motion to accept those board meetings with the addition of January to BD?
This is Chris. I'd make a motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Of course, I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Easley. All right. If there's no further comment, all board members in favor of accepting those meeting dates, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? No? All right, great. So we've got our set of meetings set for the near and long term. We'll move on to item 13, which is public comment. Does anyone wish to make public comment, which I will limit to 3 minutes for everybody's sanity? I see Mr. Figler. Did you want to talk? I see you came off mute. No. Okay.
Nope, sorry.
No, you're all good. I just I'm trying to manage the online, got real good at it during the pandemic. So, Mr. Mansfield, did you have something?
I do. Just briefly, I know that Massey already spoke, and I know it's the end of the meeting and it's been a long one, but I do think it is important. And actually, the more we are involved in this, I see actually how important it is that we are involved and to address them, the concerns and the things in the reports, especially once I read the reports. And I know Mr. Lopez now, he just got thrown into Lyon County specifically, and Humboldt, but and he sees kind of a glimpse of what actually happens, and that's what he reports on. I understand that. I get it. But there's a lot more as far as our systems in place that actually go into it, as far as the day of the hearings, how we communicate with clients, what our systems are for that, the day at the hearing, the discussions, obviously it's confidential, but I'm happy to give generalities on our processes on that, especially that kind of dovetails into the remote appearances. And frankly, I was opposed to them as well when I started doing remotely. Everyone likes being in the courtroom, and everyone understands that. I do too. But the more that this has played out for our firm specifically, and don't get me wrong, there are a lot of attorneys that abuse the remote, and there's a lot of attorneys that, frankly, that I see that are on Zoom, I want to crawl under my desk because it's clear that they haven't done what they're supposed to do as far as talking with clients and having and being prepared. So I understand how there's a kind of a negative connotation there. I do get it. But I'm so happy to speak with anybody about our systems. They might not be the best, but they're certainly really, really good. We're in direct communication with Judge Matthews, specifically in the courts, weekly about it if there's anything we can do better. So we understand the connotation around the remotes, and but I do think that it is very, very effective for us, and we can still deliver the product we need to deliver as far as effective assistance of counsel. Now, moving on to the open cases, Peter kind of alluded that the 4 days that it took me to close cases that I had no idea about until I reviewed until I was a part of the last meeting, was really an eye opener for me when I went into Legal Server. We had cases still open from 2021. That completely skews what you all are seeing as far as numbers. And I didn't realize it until I actually dug into it. It took me nearly 2 days of closing cases. I think I'm just now maybe into the end of 23, into the beginning of 2024. And simply because I'm the one, I have to do it. I appreciate Chris's suggestion about bringing someone in. But frankly, I can't even bring myself to task my paralegals with it or my legal assistants with it because they really just don't know maybe what happened or how to dispose of the cases. And it's on me. I should have had better notes when a lot of the cases were carryover and they weren't even really ours. But for our cases, we've gotten a lot better as far as saying, okay, closed cases, et cetera, et cetera. But it is correct that there's a lot of numbers there that there's hundreds of cases that should be closed, and we are working on that diligently. And then finally, I wanted to give one illustration of the balance, and you can cut me off, Matt, if you'd like, but
You can finish your comment. Thank you.
thank you. I know Massey ran a little over too, so
Yeah.
but there's one illustration that I wanted to give you all so you understand, and I don't know candidly who has actually practiced in the criminal defense world or not. But it's difficult. It's an uphill battle with the courts, with the DAs, and oftentimes with the clients. It is difficult. And so we're in this interesting rub between the workload compliance and delivering effective assistance of counsel. The illustration I have, coincidentally, I was in a bail hearing yesterday where I had a guy that got picked up on a warrant. He got 3 new misdemeanors for basically traffic citations, and he already had an FTA warrant for traffic citations. So he had 7 misdemeanors. And before the bail hearing, I received an offer that was basically plead guilty to everything and 10 days in jail and close the case. Well, if I didn't care about effective assistance of counsel and I cared more about my workload compliance, that would have been the easy way out. We all know I could have done that. I could have not convinced, but I could have told the client that, hey, this is what it is. This is the citations, et cetera, et cetera. You do 2 more days, credit time served, and you're going to be done. But I frankly told the state that that's no offer at all. That's my worst day in court. I told the client I gave the client the offer. And so and then the state, he declined the offer. That we went to the bail hearing. The state asked to max him out on the warrants and bail. He got OR'd. I argued the OR and he got released. So what I'm saying with that is that we gained another case for our work numbers, but that's okay with me because I'm not willing to sacrifice the effective assistance of counsel to get our workload numbers down. So that's kind of the theory of us, wrong, right, or indifferent. We care about standards and representation and the Constitution and people's rights. So I just wanted to share that and I'll close with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mansfield. We certainly appreciate your comments. Thank you for being here today, both of you. Are there any other public comments?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Mendiola, yes, please.
Hi, how are you? Hey, I wanted to just make a quick couple of comments. This is my last board meeting. I'll be done on December 31st. And I wanted to thank everybody. I have learned so much about the law and the challenges of public defense. And it's just been a joy. And really want to thank a lot of my friends that I've made here on this board. And I'm so proud to have served. So thanks again. And I wish you all the best. And I'm here to help anytime you need anything, especially related to Humboldt County. Thank you. And Merry Christmas.
Ms. Jaffe, did you want to comment?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Thank you.
I just wanted to say actually to Dave, thank you so much because you've really set us straight on stuff and you're just a voice of reason, which is so great.
Yes, thank you, Dave. It's been an
This
absolute
is Chris.
pleasure.
I echo it. I didn't realize you were going off, Dave. I think we all started at the same time. So thanks for always being your calm presence. You're a good listener, and that makes a big deal in politics. So thank you.
Thank
and
you.
as one of the
Dave, you are going to be
non-attorneys,
missed.
yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Joni.
I just said, Dave, you are going to be missed. We've served on this commission together for a long time, and you'll be missed.
Yes.
I'll miss you. Thank you, guys. Except for Jared.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah. Thank you from the entire board for your service, Dave. You've been it's big shoes to fill for me for sure, but you're also just such a leader, and we honor all of the work that you've put forward and wish you all the best in your new capacity going forward in your business endeavors. So congratulations on that, and happy holidays.
Yeah. Wish you all the best.
Thank you.
You too, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no further public comment, we're going to end on that chipper and happy note, and I will adjourn the meeting of the State Board on Indigent Defense Services for December the 4th, 2025. Thank you all. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
So
Good
much.
job, Madam Chair. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Take care, everyone.